Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome along to the NLR Esports League. We are here tonight for Season 3, Tier 1, Round 3 of the Championship as we take in the Belgian Grand Prix from the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps. My name is James Head. I'm delighted to be taken to the stream, of course, as always, on this fine Sunday afternoon with the sun glaring into my eyes on the left-hand side of my bedroom. Joining me in the commentary box, it is the lovely Mr. Aidan Carter. Aidan, how you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you. Yeah, recovering from an early morning from watching the Grand Prix this morning, and yeah, looking forward to this one. It was definitely a very interesting race last time out, of course, wasn't it, at Silverstone? So definitely all to play for now at the front of the standings.
It is indeed, and we'll run through the championship standings as well. Everyone is in the lobby, I believe, so I've just given the drivers a little bit of a heads up that we are going to be getting going very soon. Indeed. Looking at the drivers' standings, of course, coming into tonight, or in terms of the team standings, I should say, coming into tonight, NLR leading the way on 74 points, FER in second on 71, 3 points separating them, of course, after FER's domination around in Silverstone. Juventus there in third on 51, and then a big jump down to QRT in fourth on 21. Victus Racing Team VRT in fifth on 20. Then Team Mentalism in sixth on 18. PGS Esports in seventh on 11. They are on the graphic this week, which I'm glad to report. International Racing Team in eighth on 9. That's IRT. GSP in ninth on 5, and then ERT Elite Racing Team in 10th on 3 points. And Aidan, look at those championship standings. FER had a fantastic week last week at Silverstone, really took it to NLR. NLR had the worst possible race, but you could imagine tonight here, this afternoon here in Belgium, it should be more of an even playing field.
You would assume so, yeah. It definitely seems to be a bit more of a playing field. I would have said that about Silverstone, about the track Silverstone being obviously quite a well-known track for a lot of drivers. But yeah, LNR's race got off to a terrible start, didn't it? When both of their drivers, I think, jumped the start. So yeah, real horror show for NLR last time out. Unfortunately, FER were almost able to fully capitalise on it. But of course, I think a late race penalty for their second driver dropped them from a 1-2 to a 1-4, I believe, in the end. But either way, great result last time out for FDR. Another team as well to note for last time out was QRT. Only 21 points to the board at the moment in P4. But after the first round, they had no points on the board. So they've gone from the very back to fourth in one round. So good, a good round there in Silverstone for QRT and some momentum to build off. But like you mentioned, there is a bit of a chasm, isn't there, between the top three and fourth. And there's still a bit of a gap between second and third. Juventus are kind of lost a little bit in no man's land between the fight for the top two and fourth at the moment.
Yeah, they are indeed. Let us have a look at the track map as well here before I take you to what I've just seen on the left-hand side of my screen, and that is Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps. It's 7 kilometers and then 4.3 miles. The dinosaur track, as I like to call it, with of course the two DRS zones, one down towards the source at turn 1, one up the Kemmel straight in towards Les Combes at turns 5 and 6. And Aidan, this is a track where history meets modern Formula One racing these days, and these drivers should be suited to the track, although it is raining out on track in Q1.
It is raining out on track in Q1, yeah, and it's proper raining as well. It's not slight intermediate conditions. It's like proper full wet. So yeah, very wet start to the session. So this is going to be potentially a bit difficult for some drivers who maybe not practice in the rain or just aren't as comfortable in wet conditions. It's definitely going to be interesting to see what they can do in this one. So that'll be something to look out for. And yeah, like you say, Spa old meets new in terms of Formula One. It's a great circuit, isn't it? Of course, it's had a lot of updates in the past year that we don't see on this game at the moment, and we probably won't see on the next game, knowing the way Codemasters function at the moment. But yeah, they've made a lot of changes to the track to make it a lot safer. There's a lot more gravel traps. There's a lot wider sections as well, so we won't see those typical crashes that we see coming out of Kerpel Frere anymore. Usually, once that track model is updated. So yeah, quite a few changes to the track in the real life side of things, but on the game at least, it's still a very popular circuit. A lot of drivers do enjoy it. It is obviously the longest track on the calendar as well, and it's one of the tracks in real life, you've got to say as well, over the past few years that is making a good advocate for dropping DRS, isn't it? Because it is so easy to overtake down the Les Combes straight, isn't it? It's so easy to get past down there even without DRS that you kind of wonder whether they should test having no DRS at Spa, because it seems to work pretty well.
It does seem to work pretty well, and I mean, we're not going to have any DRS teams on this afternoon in terms of the racing, because I've just been told from Dirk and indeed from Felix as well. Apparently, it's going to be full rain in the race as well, which is the
Ooh.
worst possible conditions that any driver could hope for, I think, out on track. And judging by everyone still in the pit lane, we've got the first car now beginning to leave the pits. It is one of the Team Mentalism cars, I believe, for Team MNT. I believe it might be Agent Tajin who was on a lap, and Tajin goes very nicely, I think, on a very warm Sunday afternoon here in the northeast of England. But Tajin is coming through the Radion complex, through Rouge and Radion there at the top of the hill, through turn number 3, ran down the Camel straight into Gene, looking to try and be the first man to set up on a full wet lap. And this is going to be the conditions, I think, for the full wet race as well. And Jav has mentioned in the Discord that we're going to be here probably for about 3 hours or so. Potentially so. I'm absolutely fine. I don't have my commentary a little bit later on, which is good, so we can rerun the race if we need to. We could do anything. But Tajin, they're the first one out on track. These conditions, though, and Tajin just literally saying that coming through Bruxelles, runs so far wide out on track, this is going to be near enough a 2-minute lap for these guys out on track.
Yeah, it's incredibly wet, isn't it? Full wet conditions. We know on this game as well, the full wet tyres aren't a particularly good tyre. They're very good at clearing the water in these kind of conditions, but the second that the wet tyres start to overheat even slightly, they lose all of their pace. So they're not a great tyre in that. They don't have a very good window in them. So if you're on the wets, you know it is probably the worst conditions you can get on this game. And yeah, it's reminding me very much of Spa 2021, isn't it? A full wet quali all the way through to a full wet race. Hopefully we actually get the race started, unlike obviously that race that year. But yeah, it's not fun conditions at all, and especially around a track like you mentioned, as long as Spa, having full wet conditions for a full race around a track this long, not enjoyable at all. So people have got to hope that they've had some practice in the wet, or they are at least well versed with the wet conditions. If they are not, this is going to be an absolute nightmare, as we just see Agent Tazine having a bit of a wobble through Blanchimont. Easy flat in the dry. That's another thing to note as well. There's a lot of corners on this track that in the dry are easily flat or high-speed corners. In the wet, they change completely, don't they? You've obviously got Blanchimont as one, Kerpel Frere another. You've got to be careful through Eau Rouge and Radion, of course, as well. Pouhon as well, particularly in the wet conditions, is very difficult. So a lot of the corners that in the dry you don't necessarily think too hard about become a lot more difficult in the wet conditions. And on top of that, one thing we've got to remember as well, because we don't usually see these kind of conditions where it's full wet and a full quali and full wet for the race, they don't have a lot of full wet tyres available to them. They only have 3, if I'm not mistaken, 3 full wet tyres and 4 intermediate. So if it is full wet for all the way through quali and for the race, they have got to do some major tyre saving in this qualifying session.
They have indeed, and Tajin, I think, will be getting off the full wets very soon indeed, because he just locked up completely in toward Lake Combe. He's nearly going for a spin, coming on the run down Malmedy through in toward Bruxelles now at turn number 8, I think. And Tajin is just about halfway through a lap. We normally see, in terms of dry comparison, around a 30.2 in the first sector around here, normally on the first lap. 33 flat that was from Tajin in the first sector, so already 2.5 seconds down on what we normally see in the dry, and that's just through the first sector, even before coming through Pouhon, which is a very, very off-camber corner, especially in the wet. It's so difficult to try and get the traction on down in towards the Fania chicane, coming through the right-hand of turn 12, and then to the left-hand of turn number 13. There are 19 corners, of course, around this track as well, so we'll do our best to try and take you through all of them as the night goes on. As Tajin now comes through the right-hand of 14, in towards Campos there, and then in towards Stavilo. 29.3 in the middle sector is very, very slow, and oh my word, he nearly lost that there. Code Brown from the Haas. I think the Haas now going to be coloured brown after that one. Goodness me, Tajin giving us a scare in the commentary box, that's for sure. Coming through now, Blanchimont on the run up towards bus stop chicane, which has of course been regenerated in previous years. In the 1990s, of course, this was with the hay bales, famously, when PK and Frost, I think, made a collision, of course, out of each other around here. Tajin on the run to the line, 203.4. That's not going to be the quickest wet lap we're going to see tonight. And Tajin so far, 203.4. Quickest lap so far. There's going to be somebody coming into the 150s, I guarantee you that. But already, a third of the way through qualifying, Tajin is the only person to set a time so far. As I'm trying to flick on board with who might be on lap. Riley has invalidated actually on his run. Vogel now goes 3 seconds quicker than Tajin. Riley has backed off onto this lap, I believe. And he's at 33.3 in the first sector, so not liking it at all. Only Kitsuni out on top, though, with Vogel in second and Tajin there in third.
Yeah, got their times on the board. I was on board with ERT Pappy. He had a horrible final sector. The lap wasn't great up to that point anyway, but he had a really bad final sector, massive snap through Blanchimont, and then went straight on at the bus stop chicane and bailed straight into the pit lane. So I don't know if he had enough fuel to go for another run. That is, of course, one thing we are also going to see is these drivers doing multiple runs on the same set of tyres just to get them bedded into the conditions and to the tyres, and then as the fuel burns off, it should get better for them. I'm on board with Jeroen, who completely did the opposite and understeered his way through Blanchimont, almost completely off the track as he heads up towards the final couple of corners. Bumpy has just gone P3 on a 201.3, so the gaps are pretty spread out at the moment. Jeroen, you would imagine, should go close to the top, if not the very top. But it's only third for Jeroen, 2-minute 0.4 behind Vogel, and about half a second behind One Kitsune at the moment, who's the only person into the 59s, and I can't see anybody at the moment really looking like they're going to challenge it, apart from Heinheider. Heinheider seems to be on a fairly solid lap in the Mercedes. Of course, Heinheider had a podium, of course, last time out in Silverstone. Not the most orthodox way to get a podium, but it was a podium nonetheless as he heads around the final corner and up towards the line. Let's see where the Mercedes car can go. Can he take it to the top of the timesheets, crosses the line? No, it's not a great final sector. Again, a lot of these drivers in the final sector really struggling to find the grip. But one thing I am noticing is the rain does seem to be easing ever so slightly. So are we getting closer and closer to intermediate conditions potentially?
Potentially so, potentially so. We're going to see, I think, the changeable conditions. I mean, I was on board with Heinheider coming onto his lap, and there is a puddle basically down a bump in towards a Rouge and Radion, and that is going to cause some drivers some headaches, especially if they try and go flat out coming through a Rouge and Radion. Covers, by the way, his teammate there going third as well. Vogel there in fourth. Dirk saying in the chat as well, why does the stream have so much delay? Probably my internet, which is probably the best way I can probably describe how things are going on. Kitsune now goes quickest level with a 59.3, so we are beginning to see the times now begin to drop down. If we get onto inters, however, we are going to see towards the mid-150s, probably the low one end of the 150s, I think, on a set of intermediates. They're normally about 9 seconds quicker. Keki in the first sector, 33.9 in the first sector, is well off what we've seen early on from the likes of Vogel, from the likes of Tajin on this lap as well. Tajin, by the way, did improve to a 2-minute flat as well and gone ahead of Vogel, but Keki there in 15th. NLR, Felix said in the chat, we might drop some random red flags in the race as well that might coincidentally benefit NLR. These conditions definitely not benefiting NLR at this stage. They're not really benefiting FER either, because FER currently are, what, 5th? And Tails are going second now drops Jeroen to 6th. Roddy there in 10th. A little bit disappointing so far, but there's a lot. Oh, as Keki has got into the back of a car coming through Puon, and that was Heinheider. Heinheider has gone for full spin, and Keki has run into the back of him on the racing line. To be fair, Heinheider was, but Keki had all the track to himself on the left-hand side, and he's gone into the back of him with right side end plate damage.
That is such a disaster for Keke, not really what he wanted at all. And yeah, big step backwards, unfortunately, in this qualifying session for the McLaren. And yeah, I think kind of for Heinheider kind of dawdling a little bit on the racing line, not really paying attention to what's going on around, Keke will feel quite aggrieved by that, and a 5-place grid penalty as well, not what he wants at all, especially in a race that's going to be starting at least wet. You want as much track position as you can get, even around a track like Spa, so that is an absolute disaster, unfortunately, for Keke. So he'll be hoping that he can get a solid lap in and get to the front of the timesheets to kind of negate that loss as much as possible. I'm trying to see if anybody else is on a decent run at the moment. One driver that seems to be on a good lap right now is Artem. As I say that, he's dropped it out of curb pull Frere. He's dropped the rear of the car. So easy to do, and we saw Agent Tazine have a massive moment there on his first run, but this time around Artem wasn't able to save it. He was on a 26.2 in the middle sector. That could have comfortably put him at the top of the timesheets, but that spin has cost him quite a bit. I think that's PGS Stretch that's just gone past him on the road as well, but his lap time doesn't look all that sensational, unfortunately, and he's gone off now at Ponchmon as the other NLR car of Flair goes to the top of the timesheets then, the 59 flat. The times are starting to tumble ever so slightly, but it's still incredibly treacherous out there, isn't it? People are really struggling to keep their car on the road. I'm trying to see if anybody else is improving at the moment. Onekasune is back into the pit lane as we've got more drivers on runs now coming up towards the line. Yeah, no one really looking all that fast at the moment, are they? It seems to be, at the moment, at the front of the field. Flair's at the top, but both Team Mentalism cars right up there as well. And the Ferraris have pace, even if Artem can't quite put the lap together.
Yeah, definitely. So, time, by the way, if you're wondering why I was going ooh for, was a 33 flat through the first sector from the Alpine man. He's on the run down and towards Puon now on a lap. Jeroen now goes quickest for the 58.9, so we are beginning to see the times obviously dip down. They've only done 3 runs out on track, and this is just the nature of the lap around here at Belgium. It's a 2-minute lap pretty much for everyone, especially in the midfield. However, the quicker guys are going to be eking into the 150s. We will get low 150s if somebody decides to go on to a set of inters. Time, by the way, has looked very, very warm on this lap, I've got to say. The Alpine has looked very, very concise. Coming through this middle sector, 27.2 in the middle sector is about, I think, the fastest I think we've seen a middle sector go so far in this session. And time so far is looking on a very good lap. He is on a fresh set of wet compound tyres. This is his first run on this set of compound tyres as well. He now comes through Blanchimont, perfectly through Blanchimont. This man, I think, has got a full wet setup potentially on, as he comes now down into the bus stop chicane, through the right-hander of 18, then flicking it left to the left-hander turn 19. Tyne might actually go quicker than your own here. On the run to the line, Tyne doesn't go quickest, but he goes second. Good lap from Tyne, 59 flat, and I think that will set him comfortably into Q2. He may as well retire, I think, out on track right now.
That's definitely a risk. That is a big risk, isn't it, to retire right now, especially with the rain easing off. But no one at the moment taking the risk of going for the inters. Of course, the problem with someone trying to go for the inters now, because the lap is so long, you get maybe one lap on the intermediate tyres, potentially two if you're lucky. And that's, of course, if the inters are in the right window. So is it worth taking the risk? One driver that's put them on in the pit lane is FER Riley. Riley really struggling in the session at the moment, currently 14th and in the danger zone. So he seems to want to take the risk and try and get himself out of the bottom five, potentially out of risk of dropping out. We've got Renz on lap at the moment, but not a particularly strong first sector for the other Alpine. Unfortunately for him, Keke's back into the pit lane. Nope, never mind. Keke is going to bail out of coming into the pits and go for another run on the same set of wet compound tyres. So he crosses the line. We'll see what he can do. But at the moment, bottom five seems to be Artem, Hulkenberg, Renz, Keke, and Nathan Clark. The bottom three not setting a time, and Hulkenberg and Artem's times not representative at all at the moment. Hulkenberg went for a spin on his previous run, by the way. That is why his time's not representative. That was coming out of P1, I believe, that the Aston Martin was facing the wrong way. So still plenty of time to find for him. We'll see him through the second sector split. We've obviously got a good benchmark of about a low 27 to be a really competitive lap as he crosses that split. And it's 27.3. It's a decent lap time so far. This could put him up around by his teammate Payne, who's currently P4. So we'll follow Hulkenberg to the end of the lap. A solid lap so far should get him, at the moment at least, comfortably out of the range of dropping out of this qualifying session. However, everybody's coming out for their final runs. Riley has taken the risk. Riley is on the intermediate tyres.
Interesting from the FEL man, currently in 14, 201.5. Hulkenberg, by the way, that really, really slow coming out of Blanchimont. Did feather the throttle nicely. He has lost a bit of time. He goes behind Oni Kitsune as a result of that as well. If he had a bit more commitment coming through Blanchimont even, he would have been quicker than Oni Kitsune, maybe even quicker than Payne. They're in sixth position, doing a good job. Renz now goes quickest, the NLD man, out on top. 58.6, 58.9 there for your own there, currently in second. And now Covers splits the pair with a 58.8 in the Mercedes on his fourth lap. On that full set of wet compound tyres, majority of drivers are going. Keke, by the way, being informed that he's on new pedals. 27.4 in the middle sector is not that quick from Keke. He has got a new setup, obviously, on with his new pedals, and he's currently coming up the hill in towards Blanchimont through the left-hander now of turn number 17, and then in towards the bus stop chicane. Of course, with 3 minutes to go in qualifying. Renz Covers your own currently out on top in the top three, and then Tyne, Flair, Payne, Vogel, Oni Kitsune, Hulkenberg, Nathan Coe in the top 10. Out of qualifying so far will be Riley, Stretch, Artem. Keke, who's going to improve, will not be. He goes to the line and goes 7th. Good luck there for him. And he can improve as well on that run, potentially. And now Nathan Clark right down the back of the field as well. Now promotes Boumier into the bottom 5. The team on there in behind in 15th position with a 201.3. However, the Dutchman has just started up on a lap, so it'll be interesting to see what he does. Riley as well. He's just starting up on a run, coming down the hill now and towards a Rouge and Radion. And that is a Rouge, and that's Radion actually at the top of the hill. I had to get that one in, but Riley now coming through. Looks a little bit tedious and a little bit tense, I've got to say, coming through a Rouge and Radion. Coming through the first sector split, he is 33 flat, so he's actually up there in the first sector. Might mean it could turn into for Q2 at least. If not, it's going to turn into probably the last 2 minutes of the session.
Yeah, it's a bit of a risk, isn't it? But it seems to be on the cusp. There are other drivers at the moment out on intermediates. Artem and Nathan Clark, 19th and 20th, both on Inters as well as Tyne and Nathan JB. They seem to be the only ones that have committed to the intermediate tyres. Jerome's back in the pit. He will not make it out in time for another run. Neither will Payne. He's retired from the session. But this middle part of the lap is going to be the crucial bit for Riley. Can he find the pace in the middle part? The first sector really is just the hairpin and then getting through Overrouge and Radion. So it's fairly easy to keep the pace consistent to wet tyres there on the intermediate. Can he find any time in the middle part of the lap? It's still looking very treacherous, isn't it? He's not taking any of the curbs. He's not taking any risk. He's on half throttle pretty much all the way through this middle part of the lap. I don't think I've seen him full throttle yet as he crosses the second sector split. He's 1.1 up on his time, but it's still only a 27.9. That is quite a way down. That is about half a second off where we saw the likes of Hulkenberg and Keke on their runs. So he's up on his time, but it's still not looking great. And Zone Kitsune goes back to the top. That's a great lap from Ronnie Kitsune on the full wets at 58.1 to put himself half a second clear at the front of the timesheets. The Mentalism guys looking pretty strong in the wet conditions as Keke now crosses the line to go second on his second lap on those tyres. Here comes Riley to the line on his intermediates, crosses the line and stays 17th. He's only 17th. He found time, but it was not enough. It's right on the cusp. He's got enough time to go for another run, and he should have enough ERS, but that's not all that encouraging. That only a 2 flat on the intermediates when Ronnie Kitsune on the wets is basically 2 seconds faster than man at the moment. I think it's maybe too much of a risk. I don't think they're quite there yet. This is his last opportunity to really go for it. And all the other drivers on intermediates are already on runs as it stands, and I don't think it's looking that great at the moment, unfortunately.
Artem's improving right down the bottom, 25.1 in the middle sector from the Ferrari. He is on an absolute blistering time here. If you didn't think the Inters were coming on, this has now proved that the Inters are in fact coming on, and currently the Ferrari needs this. Artem coming through Blanchimon, powers through Blanchimon, now into the stop chicane, onto the brakes at the 100-metre ball, get the car rotated in very neatly indeed, do the right hand with 18, to the left hand with 19. This is by far going to go quicker than Oni Kitsune on the run to the line from Artem, and how do you like these apples? 56.6 from Artem, takes the field apart. And also on the lap is Nathan Clark, 27.8 in the middle sector, is nowhere near what Artem has said, and he's just trying to get a feel for the tyres. I think Ren's there going second as well, 57.9. Nathan Clark, though, on the run to the line, I think is going to be out, and he just goes 15th. He goes 15th for now. Riley's on another lap. He's 3 tenths up out of the first sector, and he's 1 second up out of the middle sector. So Riley at the minute is putting Nathan Clark out of qualifying. Has a huge snap of oversteer, though. Heinheider as well on the lap. He's improving by a second, 26.4 in the middle sector. Nathan was up there in the middle sector there as well. It's all to play for. Who's going to go out? I think Hulkenberg could be in trouble. Boumier goes 9th. Good lap from him. Vogel and Payne certainly are going to be in trouble in 12th and 13th. Riley now in towards the final couple of corners. The FER man really needs this lap to come alive, and the AlphaTauri I think is going to do enough quite easily in the end. Riley to the line goes 6th, goes up to 6th, and Flair there is on a lap 4.5 tenths up through that middle sector. Heinheider on the run towards the line. What is the Mercedes going to do? Goes 4th. Big lap time from Heinheider. Pappy is on a lap as well, and Pappy is actually not on a run. Tyne the only one to try and improve, 25.8 in the middle sector. He looks like he might go second here. Tyne on the run to the line, and he goes 3rd in the end, 27.8. And that, my friends, I think with Flair now coming across the line to go 2nd. Good lap from him, 57.6. Artem out on top from Flair in 2nd. Oni Kitsune in 3rd will run through the guys that are out of Q1 in just a second when it comes back up on our screens. But a very, very interesting qualifying session there, with the Inters clearly coming into play from Artem's perspective. He is out on top, from Flair there in 2nd, Oni Kitsune there in 3rd, Tyne in 4th, with Renz there in 5th. Heinheider and Keke, I'm not sure how the 5-second penalties work. I think that's applied to their positions at the end of qualifying, so therefore, if they qualify into Q3, they are going to be starting maybe 9th and 10th, and then they'll drop down those 5 positions as a result. But they are 6th and 7th. Riley in 8th, Tails there in 9th, Jean there in 10th, Covers in 11th. He risked it actually retiring in the pit lane. Boumier in 12th, Jeroen in 13th, and only getting through by 4 tenths of a second in the end. Payne in 14th, Vogel just about straight through by a tenth of a second. Out of qualifying in Q1 is Hulkenberg, Nathan Clark, Stretch and Pappy. Very interesting that the 2 Nathans are going to be together right down at the back end of the field as well. Interesting qualifying session though, Aiden. Q1 really mixed up. Q2, hopefully now we get to see the Inters fully integrated into this track.
Definitely seems like it. Yeah, it seemed to be in the last minute of the session the Inter started to come into play, but the Inters only seemed to work for some drivers. You kind of had to have the confidence on them to make them work. Artem had buckets of confidence to go 1.1 seconds faster than anybody else, but you saw other drivers like Nathan Clark struggle to get those tyres through. He was on the intermediate tyres, he couldn't make it through. Neither could Nathan JB either. He couldn't make it through on the intermediate tyres. So yeah, it was very much a game of confidence at the end of Q1, and unfortunately some drivers caught out by it, and that is the second week in a row, by the way, both ERT drivers knocked out in Q1. Really rough start to the season, unfortunately, for ERT. They're going to have to look to try and bounce back at some point in this race, but with it potentially being a wet race, that is going to be incredibly difficult for them to try and work their way forward. So now we head into Q2. Everybody, it seems like, is on the intermediate tyres now, so now it's going to be a question of who gets up to pace on the Inter as well, and can anyone get near Artem, because no one could in the first part of qualifying. Both Mentalism cars in the wet conditions look very good, but is that only because of the wet tyre? Are they going to carry that pace over onto the intermediates? It's going to be interesting. I think we could see maybe potentially a shock elimination here. I wouldn't be surprised if we see maybe one of our top two in the championship in NLR or FER maybe get knocked out here.
Yeah, I'm thinking maybe Riley, looking at his performance in Q1. I mean, he was up there toward the end of the session. I think he qualified, 8th and 9th, I think, in Q1. And in the end, he just about scraped a lap out of himself, really, and out of the track, because other than that, he struggled throughout that session. He's there down in 12th currently. Of course, he has made it through into Q2. FER will be hoping that Riley can try and improve, I think, as the session goes on. If he has got that full wet setup on, however, that we may be suggesting, he could actually excel within this qualifying session. There might be a big change-up in terms of what we're seeing in terms of the setups as well. Going into Q2, of course, Park Fame are locked in from Q1 into Q2. Drivers out early want to try and get as many laps as possible underneath them before we go, of course, into the full wet race with 22 laps awaiting the drivers out on track as well. But I'm looking at the rain, and the rain doesn't seem to be there, to be honest. It seems to be very, very light indeed. As I ride on board with Payne coming to the right-hander of Stavilo, the rain is falling, but it's a lot lighter than what it was in Q1.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot lighter. It's definitely well into intermediate conditions now. There's no obvious standing water that we can see at the side of the road, so very comfortable intermediate conditions now. You've got to say this is kind of prime conditions now for the Inters, where they're not going to overheat and you should get good pace out of them. So yeah, this is kind of ideal conditions, and of course for these drivers as well, the fact that it's gone to intermediates is maybe a bit of a saving grace tyre-wise, of course. If it was full wet all the way through qualifying, that management of the full wets through quali into the race at a full wet start for the race would be incredibly difficult, but this slight switching conditions has maybe eased that pain a little bit, and they don't have to focus so much on having to save tyres in that qualifying session. I did notice some drivers went through Q1 on only one set of full wet tyres, so maybe some drivers thinking about saving those tyres already, but it doesn't look like you're going to have to do much more of that in this qualifying session, which is good. And we can see these drivers going all out for this pole position. But first, they've got to get through Q2, and this is going to be incredibly difficult for some of these drivers to see what they can do. And there you can see Payne, first sector already into the 31, so we're already a second up in the first sector alone on what we were managing in Q1.
We are indeed coming through Malmedy on the run down in towards Bruxelles, on board with Payne. There are yellow flags. I think that is the McLaren, maybe a flare just backing off on his lap. One of the two McLarens anyways. The other one is on the other side of the track coming through. I think that might be Keki just preparing up for the lap. Payne coming through the left-hander now of Jackie X corner on the run now down in towards Pouon, and the German now looking pretty good indeed as it comes now through in towards Pouon. The GSP man, of course, the German-based team coming through Pouon on the run down in towards the Fania chicane, and this is already quicker. You can just tell in terms of the track conditions that this is already quicker in the middle sector. Artem, by the way, I think was a 25.1 in the middle sector, so for a bit of comparison from Q1 to Q2, I think Payne's going to be about a second up on that. Coming to the middle sector split, here it is now, and it's a 24.5, so he's only half a second up. He has made a few mistakes, though, on this lap, so we will see quicker laps, I think, as this session will go on. Vogel there on a lap, Keki just starting on a lap. It was Flair who had left the yellow flags out in the first sector. He's got back going again in that middle sector now, but Payne in towards the left-hander of Blanchimont on the road towards the bus stop chicane. Of course, various different formats in real life back in the day. Of course, as I mentioned a little bit earlier on, I think it was PK and Frost that made contact through here. Villeneuve getting caught up in that as well back in the 1980s as Payne on the run to the line goes with a 55.5 and already bettered by Tails, who've got a good slipstream there actually. 54.880, now bettered by Renz, 54.843. Time there third, disappointing from him, judging by his first lap pace. Riley coming through the final couple of corners doesn't seem up there at all. Coming through the bus stop chicane, Riley coming through, he's going to be behind to Gene, I think, he on his first run, or he's just behind. by a tenth of a second, 55.8. But if I'm looking at that from an FER perspective, I'm probably thinking, Riley, you better up your game, my son, because they're in 6th position, 55.8, currently not good enough, I think, to get into Q3.
Yeah, it doesn't look it. No, he's not look confident in these wet conditions, has he? He looks really on edge. The car doesn't look settled underneath him. I don't know if he's maybe not got a wet setup on that car, or his setup is somewhat compromised and he just doesn't have the grip, and others do. He's kind of struggling at the moment. Currently P6. There are some drivers behind him that haven't set a great lap so far in the session, as Covers goes now into P3 for QRT. It's a good lap there from the Mercedes driver. And keeping an eye on the NLR cars, Keke has invalidated his first run. Flair a 32 flat in the first sector, not the best first sector we've seen so far. So not a great start to their lap so far. Artem a 32 flat in the first sector as well, but the middle sector, of course, will be where we can see Artem's pace, and he comes through that, and it's a 23.4. Blimey, Artem is so fast in the middle part of the lap. Seems a little bit slow in the first sector, so you can definitely tell Artem has got some downforce on that car, because that car is hooked up in the middle part of the lap. We'll see him through the end of the lap as well to see what he can do. Can he go to the top of the time sheets? You would imagine he would be able to on this. Obviously heads towards the bus stop chicane, hits the brakes nicely, no lockup, gets the cars to the apex very nicely indeed, keeps it in 4th gear through bus stop to nullify the wheel spin as he comes out of the corner and up towards the line. This should go comfortably to the top, and it does. A 54.1, goes 7/10 clear of the rest of the field. What a session Artem is having. He showed great pace last time out in Silverstone, didn't get the result he would have wanted, but had great pace. But this is something else. This is an absolutely brilliant performance. We've had domination from NLR in round 1, domination from FER in round 2. Could we end up seeing potentially a VRT domination in round 3? Because they're currently 1st and 3rd and looking very good as a team.
They are indeed, and I tell you what, Artem has looked absolutely lively as anything, I think, in this qualifying session so far. 54.1, 7/10 comfortably clear of Rennes. That takes some doing, I think, around a track like Belgium. The rain is easy enough as well. Jeroen, however, 24.1 in the middle sector is 4/10 off. So Jeroen is up there. Oh, it gets nearly caught in the curb. Coming out of Stavolo there. But Jeroen is on a lap. Keke as well is on a lap coming through that Stavolo part of the track now. But he's invalidated. So Keke there could be the shock one potentially out of this qualifying session in this early stage. But Artem leading the way from Rennes in 2nd. Tails there in 3rd. Here comes Jeroen now into the final couple of corners. Riley, by the way, did improve on his lap. 55 flat is better. Probably not safe, though, I think, from Riley's perspective. Jeroen on the run to the line only goes 4th. 54.888. Pretty sure. I think the lap time was set a little bit earlier on. I think maybe from Tails, who had that lap time a little bit earlier on in the session. But Artem leading the way. Ren's there in 2nd. Tails there in 3rd. Keke just on another run. Just trying to flick through and see if there's anybody on a proper run at this stage. I think Tyne potentially could be in the Alpine. 55.2 in on his personal best so far. Now looking to try and go personal best in this middle sector. He is now getting hooked up with this lap. Tyne coming through this middle sector split much quicker. Half a second up even, coming through Stavolo. And this is looking pretty good from the man in P8 so far.
Yeah, looking like a good lap as well. Flair, another one who's improving. He's 2/10 up on his time at the moment, currently P7, so he's finding a bit more time. Keke really needs to get a time on the board. That's 2 laps in a row that he's invalidated. We have a spin as well at Pouon. That is Bumpier, who's gone for a spin in the IRT Red Bull. So not a great run so far for IRT in this session. One of them out in Q1. The other driver spinning through Pouon that time around. We'll see these drivers to the line now. We'll see what they are able to do as Tyne crosses the line, goes P2, just under half a tenth behind Artem at the top of the timesheets. Flair will be next across the line. He now goes P3 with a 54.7, still over half a second off the top of the timesheet. So and Tyne currently have a bit of a chasm between themselves and the rest of the field. The gap between Flair, Ren's, Tails and Jeroen is incredibly tight. It's only a 1/10 of a second between the 4 drivers, but they are just well over half a second off the times at the top of the timesheets at the moment. So yeah, really struggling, some of these drivers. Keke on a run now. Keke, this is much more like it. 23.7 in the middle part of the lap. It was a mega first sector, a 31.7 in the first sector from Keke. So that car seems to be fast in a straight line. Good middle sector as well. Hopefully he should be able to find a bit more time in this final sector if he has got a good car in a straight line as he heads up towards the bus stop chicane. We'll see what he can do, but this should put him comfortably in range of the top 3, you would imagine, if he can get the bus stop right, gets the car stopped, mates the apex nicely, comes out of the final corner and gets the power down nicely as well. Doesn't use the curb in these wet conditions, crosses the line, goes P4, so he kind of fills that gap between the front 3 and the rest of them. So good lap from Keke. LNR now 4th and 5th, so a lot safer than they were a couple of minutes ago. And looking at the rain, we said it was easing off at the start. It has completely eased off now. It is barely raining at all, so this track is only going to get faster.
Yep, the track is only going to get faster. It is still light rain out on track from what I can see with Time Hider. Certainly, I mean, I've got glasses on, so I have to literally look behind because the sun is just shining on my computer screen, shining on my TV, so I can't really see what my TV is saying either. Behind Hider there in 13th position, 55.6. In that middle sector, invalidated coming through the the Fanya chicane. Unfortunate for him because he was looking like he was on a good run, about a 10th up out of that first sector split. But after him out on top, Time there in second, he's back in the pits. Covers there in third as well. He's clearly taken the covers off that Mercedes so far out on track. He's there in third with Keki in fourth, Flair there in fifth. The disgust of my co-commentator sitting to the right-hand side of me with that pun. But Renz is on the lap, and he's coming through the first sector split, and Keki was a 31.7 in that first sector. Renz 32.1, but he's 3/10 up on his run. Clear now that the track is going to improve. Are we even going to see maybe a dry end towards the end of Q3, perhaps? That's what I'm going under the impression of, because it's still raining. It's light rain out on track. If it's light rain at the start of qualifying for Q3, 12 minutes, basically the weather will change in 10 minutes. There could be potential dry running towards the end of Q3 if and only if the weather conditions don't change between sessions.
Yeah, there's definitely the possibility. The rain at the moment now looks like it's pretty much stopped. You can see 1 or 2 drops every couple of every second or so. It's basically stopped raining at this point. So we could see a wet, dry end to Q3. And if anybody has put a dry setup on, that will be massive for them in their qualifying efforts. And I think Keke is one of them. He definitely looks like he's got something more tailored to the dry conditions in this first sector. But Renz, yeah, great middle sector from the Alpine driver as he heads around towards the end of the lap now, and you can tell the track is just getting faster and faster and faster. Payne's on the lap as well, currently P12, needs to get out of the drop zone. 7 thousandths of a second up in the first sector on his personal best as he heads through the middle part of the lap now, but Renz up towards the line. This should put him to the top of the timesheets if he can nail the bus stop, which he seems to be able to do quite nicely through the final corner as well. And Renz, this could be the first one into the 53s, I would assume, as he crosses the line in the Alpine, and it is pretty comfortably into the 53s in the end of 53.8. So anybody in the pits now, I think, needs to get out. They need to get out quickly so that they can get a good run on the board, because it is getting quicker and quicker. Payne right now, P12, 7/10 up on his personal best, which would put him comfortably inside the Q3 slot at the moment with enough time to do another run. So Payne here looking pretty good as he heads up towards the final chicane, looking comfortable to not take himself out of elimination zone.
Yeah, definitely not. Payne was purple in the middle sector showing on my screen as well, so he is on a good run here. The GSP man coming to the final corners. I think he'll go around covers Keki sort of area on the run line. Yeah, goes behind Keki, 54.5. Again, I don't think that's good enough, though, to get into Q3 at this stage. With the track still improving, we could see potential 52s towards the end of this session. Roddy just on the map. Interesting as well from the FER boys. Jerome is actually ahead of Roddy by around 2 or 3 seconds. We've normally seen this, I think, from as actually Roddy's coming to the final corner. I don't know what was going on there with the camera. It was a Mercedes in behind. I think it was covers just on an outlap coming out of the pit lane, which I got confused with there. But Jerome is now on a run. He's on the run down in toward the Lacombe chicane at the end of the Kemmel straight course. Dutch corner sitting there to the left-hand side. Cheering, of course, the Dutchman on. 31.6 in the first sector is purple, and he's 3.5 tenths up already. So the Dutchman flies now through Lacombe, on the run through Malmedy at the top of the hill, on the run now down the hill, sliding his way, coming out of Malmedy, on the run down the hill now in towards Bruxelles. And I am looking on board with the AlphaTauri, and I think the rain has actually stopped now out on track. I can't see much rain at all falling in front of the camera angle. Normally suggests to me that the track is still going to improve. The sun is trying to glare through the clouds as well, but Jerome in this middle sector, not looking too bad at all. Coming down through this middle sector split, or coming towards the end of the middle sector, into the middle sector split. And Jerome looking alive, I've got to say, on this lap. We'll see what his middle sector is going to be like, but I tell you what, he is on a very, very good run here. The FEO man is coming alive here in Belgium, popping over the border, of course, from the Netherlands to Dutch, and 23 flat for Spawn for Renz in that middle sector, 1.1 seconds up. He's currently going 53.7, still needs to improve a little bit more to try and get him comfortably into the end of Q2 even.
Yeah, it definitely does. It has officially stopped raining now. There is no rain on the screen, so it is stopped raining. The track is going to dry out. And interestingly, Artem has chosen not to come out. He is still in the pit lane. There is no time for him to come for another run, so he's taken a big risk here by staying in the pit lane. Jerome then up towards the line. What is his time going to be? It's going to put him fastest to 53.6 up to the top of the time sheets. Next across the line, Onikitsune, currently P11. Where can he go in this field as he crosses the line now? Goes P6, so he is now comfortably into Q2 as it stands. Other drivers starting their runs now. And O'Reilly up to the line now. The other AlphaTauri on a good lap as well. Crosses the line. But only P6 in the end. Not a great final sector. He lost a bit of time, actually, the final sector compared to his personal best. So Riley here, he has got another chance here. He can go for another run. But again, Riley looking a little bit on the back foot in this qualifying session. Timer has run out, so everybody that's on a lap now, this will be their last runs. If I'm Artem, though, I'm a bit on edge here because that is a big risk not coming out in these drying conditions. He has decided to stay in the pit lane and not go for another run. That is a big, big risk, especially someone who's been so fast all session long.
Yeah, definitely so. Tails, however, is on a very good lap for the VRT team. Coming through the middle, the final corners now. Bus stop chicane could go quicker than your own on the run to line. Doesn't in the end goes third ahead of Artem. Artem potentially could be in trouble from a few of the guys on laps. Covers it just started on one. Time was up in the first sector. Looking pretty good, I've got to say. They're in 5th position on his run. The Alpine is going to be one of the first to come across the line. It's one of the McLarens, though. And I think it is Flair who is on the run. He's only 500s up. 23.9 in that middle sector is not good enough from the NLR's perspective, or the NLR man's perspective. They're in 12th. Keki, they're in 9th currently. Looks to be good. There's an AlphaTauri spun in the middle sector, and I have a feeling that might be Riley who was spun. That could be Riley or Yaron, one of the two. Flair on the run line goes 9th. He's on the borderline, but Keki currently out of qualifying, but 23.2 in the middle sector. He is responding. He's going to be one of the next to come across the line at this stage as well. Bumye is done, so the IRT man will definitely be out of Q2. Keki is on a run now, coming through the final couple of corners. His time now goes second. He's going to be comfortably into Q3, you'd imagine. There's now Keki on the run towards the bus stop chicane. Around a 12-second difference now from that little banner overhanging the circuit towards the checkered flag. And Keki at the minute, I think, is going to go around Ren's tail sort of area on the run to the line. And he goes right in between them both. 53.926. Good lap from him. Vogel is out. Tajin goes 6th even. Very good lap from him. Riley now goes 2nd. FPR currently 1-2. Payne is done. Flair and Covers now goes quickest. Covers there with a very good lap. Flair is not on a lap. Payne is into the pit lane. That is the end of a very hectic qualifying session, and it's Covers out on top. Yaron in 2nd, Riley in 3rd. Oni Kitsuni has scraped through in the end by 2.5 tenths per second compared to Flair, but only 2 thousandths per second off Artem and only 600ths off his own teammate. Very good qualifying, and Team Mentalism for the first time this season have got both drivers into the top 3. The big shock, I think, out of that session: Flair out, Payne out, and Vogel out.
Yeah, there's quite a few. I would say there's quite a few people out there in Q2 that are definitely surprised, as we did predict potentially one of the NLR or the FBR guys would be out, and it's Flair. Didn't get that final run in, wasn't really fast enough. He's out of the session. Hein Heider, another one, podium sitter last time out in Silverstone, out in Q2 quite comfortably as well, only 13th on the grid for him, and of course he's got a 5-place grid penalty to go with that as well. So Hein Heider will start this race in 18th place. That is an absolute disaster for the QRT driver, while his QRT teammate goes fastest in Q2. So not a great session at all for Hein Heider in that one. And yeah, like you mentioned, both Mentalism cars into Q3 for the first time this season. Great stuff. They look good in all they've looked in these wet conditions. So Team Mentalism seemingly very prepared for the wet.
Yeah, definitely so on that. We are going to have, by the way, a restarted lobby at the end of Q3. I've just been informed this by Mr. Jav. We'll be resetting the grid post-qualifying to get rid of Keki and Hein 5-place grid penalties, with both of them, of course. Hein out in 13th. He would be starting 18th, of course, with that 5-second penalty applied. Keki is, of course, in Q3. He will be starting toward the bottom end of the top 10, I think, in this Q3. So we are going to have a restart in terms of this, and we are going to be having, of course, a little bit of an intermission break in terms of that, as well as the weather seems like it is dry, I think, out on track for Q3. The track still looks a little bit damp, but this now seems like it is going to be potentially a dry qualifying session, and it is. It is going to be a dry qualifying session for Q3. Artem, Ij there Defender there in the comment section saying Artem is confident. I wouldn't be now, because he's now got rid of his one advantage, and that was the rain.
Yeah, I definitely feel the same. I think we definitely saw in Q2, especially some drivers, you could tell within the first sector times who had gone for something more tailored to the dry and who had gone something more tailored to the wet. Artem definitely more tailored for the wet. That car was so fast in the middle part of the lap. But the first part of the lap, he was the best part of 4/10 slower than the likes of Keke, who had a much faster car in a straight line. So these kind of conditions is going to benefit Keke massively. If there's anybody else as well on a similar kind of run in terms of their first sector times. We saw both FVR cars were great in a straight line in the first sector. They could be on a more of a dry setup, which will help them in quali as well. It won't help them for the race if it is wet, but of course that will mean that they get the track position, and in the wet, track position is everything. So that is going to be very crucial for this qualifying session. It's going to be interesting to see who's got the best pace. By the way, understandable that we're restarting the lobby for those 5 players grid penalties. If I'm completely honest, I would have only got rid of Kekes. I wouldn't got rid of Heinheider's, because Heinheider was in the way and dawdling on the racing line when Keke was on a fast lap. So yeah. But anywho, that is what they've chosen to do. We will get a restart. We'll get both of them removed. So Heinheider saves 5 places on the grid, and so will Keke. So that is big for Keke as well, especially knowing that we know what setup he's on. Now that he's got a shot at pole, he could actually keep pole if he gets it. So yeah, big opportunity here for NLR, who in the first parts of qualifying didn't look all that strong. But now that it's dry, this has played far back into their favour. And there you go. Ooh. DRS is now enabled.
Wow. I said it was a bit damp coming out of on track there, just when qualifying started here for Q3. Now the track looks absolutely bone dry, I've got to say, when I'm on board with covers coming through this middle sector. It looks bone dry. It still looks damp in places, and it's the sort of track where it just gets rain. But then I'm looking at covers here, and I'm seeing rain just falling down the camera screen there. So I wonder if there was still a little bit of spray, and a certain spray coming through the final sector there at Stavolo. It still looks like the track is damp. DRS is enabled. Obviously, these cars are going to get rid of the moisture within the track surface still, but I'm on board with covers. The rain is falling down his camera lens, and this could be quite treacherous still at this early part of Q3.
Yeah, in this early part of Q3, of course, their first run on the drier tyres, it's going to be a bit difficult kind of getting used to the new compounded tyre, getting used to the dries, and of course the track might not be fully up to temperature on full grip as well. So if you're one of the first ones out, you are taking a bit of a risk, and you may not be in the best of the track conditions. So covers first out could be a bit of a risk going first, but you should have plenty of time, and of course plenty of soft tyres to use in this final part of qualifying. So that is at least one benefit for them as covers goes through Eau Rouge and Radion now. We'll see what he is able to do as he heads down through Les Combes, towards the Les Combes, down the Camel Straight towards the Les Combes chicane. We'll see what his first sector time is like in the Mercedes. This will be a good reference point for the rest of them, and it's a 30.1, sorry, in the first sector. So a good first sector from covers. We'll see what drivers can do behind. Keke, I think, is going to be the first behind, but Keke is actually spun coming out of the source hairpin. So already Keke with a spin on his first run.
Yeah, Riley's actually the second one in behind with a 30.1 in the first sector, so he was looking quite good through there, quicker than covers. But around 700ths of a second, covers now coming through the left hand of Jackie X, other than down in towards Puon. Heinheider, by the way, in terms of that penalty update, he could be potentially penalised accordingly post-race with that move of course being on the racing line in Q2, which you have just been tagged in, I'm going to say, within the chat as well, which just clarifies things for us, clarify things for you guys there as well. Wizzy saying as well, Dirk saying, how can you restart this now? People can take new setups for race. That is very unfair. It is very unfair, but then again, we're going to be keeping the positions pretty much limited. And Tails and Artem, to be fair, they're in Q3. I wouldn't be complaining if both of your drivers are in Q3, if I'm going to be honest. Just leave them to their business out on track, and obviously try and get that 1-2 for the end of Q3 as covers now comes through into the final couple of corners. Already quicker, of course, on this run, on the run to the line. This is more like a 43.1, not a 53.1, 43.1. Well in the doldrums now, the 53s, but covers there out on top. Riley was on a lap, but he's invalidated coming through, I think, the middle part of the lap. So Riley there down in 9th, will stay there in 9th at this stage. And the FBR man, interestingly, I think is running quite high fuel because he is running very high gears down in towards turn number 1. I think he's going on a down lap and then going for another lap after this, and that's exactly what he's doing. Or he's giving the others a bit of slipstream potentially for your own. This could be really well pulled off actually, because it's coming through a Rouge and Radion. He's getting slipstream from the bottom of the hill, through a Rouge, through Radion, on the run down Les Combes. This is perfect from an FBR perspective. This could be a 29 first sector, I think, from your own. In this first sector split, that's slipstream 29.6. Massive, massive slipstream gain from the FBR boys. Now it's all up to your own. Your own is already quicker, 5/10ths quicker than covers in that first sector split. And he's already, even if he makes the worst possible lap, makes mistakes in this lap, he's still going to be going on top.
That is a massive first sector from Euron. Usually you see the toes a lot in the final sector. Oh, it's invalidated. No. Euron's invalidated through the X corner. That is such a shame. But yeah, I think he potentially might be going on still pushing this lap so he can give himself a delta that he can work off of. But yeah, that was a massive first sector time. You usually see the toe down through Blanchimont because you don't have DRS, and having a toe with no DRS sometimes in qualifying actually works out better, because with DRS open in qualifying, you're pretty much hitting your top line speed straight away. So yeah, 14.2 for the middle sector now for your own. It's obviously not going to be a valid lap, as across the line comes Oni Kitsune. Team Mentalism currently second and third, so they're having a good qualified session even in the dry as well as the wet, and Artem can only manage fourth at the moment, and I think that is just accustomed to the fact that he is on a setup that is far more tuned for the wet conditions. So you're starting to see now those who are really strong in the wet struggling in these dry conditions at the end of qualifying, most notably both VRT and both Juventus cars. They were kind of the top four all the way through Q1 and Q2, and out of all the people that have set times, they are the slowest four.
Keke was fastest in the first sector, however, 15.7 in the middle sector, invalidated through that part of the lap from the McLaren's perspective, so the NLR man currently there down in 8th position as it stands. Pepine saying in the chat there as well, 29.6 is damn fast. It is damn fast, and I'll tell you what is also going to be damn fast as well. The sun is now beginning to come out, certainly off my camera screen, which is really good because I can bring you the full joys of my action, and we've also got sun beginning to blaze through the clouds here out on track, with the sun now glaring onto the pit lane on the pit lane entry as we get the shadows now beginning to form out on track, which is really good indeed. But Yaron, with that big slipstream gain, was up in that first sector split. I'm just trying to see if there's anybody on the lap at this stage. I think Oni Kitsune I thought was going again. He's not. He's 4.5 seconds down in the middle sector. So that is everyone off their first runs. They're only going to get a second run, I think, in before the end of Q3. Covers out on top. Tajin in second. Oni Kitsune in third. And if you ask me, that top three at the start of Q1, I would not have had you on whatsoever, because Covers has done brilliantly. Team Mentalism have been complete underdogs, I think, so far tonight, and it's been fantastic to watch from the French team's outfit. NLR Keke in 8th, Yaron in 9th, Riley in 10th. Ideally, the top three that we were expecting is at the bottom end of the field after one run in Q3, because they all invalidated.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? It seems like, apart from Covers, it seems like Q3, the order is completely reversed to what you would expect, because you would expect the FVR drivers and KK to be right at the top with what we know of their setups as well. When, of course, Juventus have been fast all season long. They've been fast today, as have both VRT cars. And then you've got to say Mentalism, they haven't been fast really that much this season, but they were good in the wet conditions, and now we're in the dry, and they seem to be even better in the dry, which is a kind of a bizarre twist of events. So yeah, very interesting. These final runs are going to be incredibly crucial. So Keke, Yaron, and Riley cannot mess up these final runs, and crucially as well, of course, there's not enough time left in this session now, I don't believe, for FVR to try and do that toe once again. There is not enough time left in the session to pull that off. They're going to have to go out for their individual runs now. So Yaron there with that toe kind of blew a good opportunity. That would have comfortably been the fastest time if he had not invalidated it. So yeah, that toe a little bit wasted, unfortunately, for the FVR drivers. So unless they sacrifice one of their drivers to give them a toe, but that's not really a smart idea. It's a team event. You need both drivers as high up as possible. So yeah, they're kind of their ace up their sleeve for FVR used and kind of ruined immediately. So can't use that again. So they're going to have to rely on their raw speed. But we know they've got great raw speed, and we know they've got a car more tuned to these conditions than the wet we've had previously. So don't count them out at all. But that ace up their sleeve is no longer be usable.
Yeah, definitely. So there is a bit of an argument, by the way, going in the comment section about whether we should restart this race. The decision is final. We are restarting this race, however you like it or not. And yes, it is going to be. It's just the nature of the game, unfortunately. We can't have a specified rule set up, basically, where we can switch from lobby upon lobby and ask drivers to run a dry setup or a wet setup. It was going to be, and Jav has confirmed this to me as well privately, that it was going to be wet start to the race and then turn dry towards the back end of the race, and that is exactly what it's going to be set up as well. We're not going to show you on the screen how it's going to be set up, because I want to try and make it a little bit interesting, but that is the weather that is going to be set up, however you like it or not, and every driver was under that same impression. Even if they weren't qualifying in Q1, Q2, or Q3, they would have all had that same information, of course, out on track as well. Maybe borrowing one or two drivers because, you know, game's broken and all that, but still. Covers out on top, Tajin in second, Oni Kitsune there, currently in third. Keke, Yaron, Riley. Riley's the first man out on track. He's there in 10th. These guys have only got one run to crack this track. And, as you said, FER are not going to pull off their slipstream. Potentially, Team Mentalism could. Oni Kitsune and Tajin. If Tajin invalidates, if he's the first man on a lap, which he is, Onikatsuni then is still valid, and Tajin invalidates. That system could potentially work from a team mentalism perspective. Otherwise, everyone is pretty much a no man's land out on track. Tyne and Ren's there for NLD are 5th and 7th. They can't really do that either, even though they're around each other on the same part of the track. But Riley now, the first man about to go onto a lap, coming through the bus stop chicane at turns 18 and 19, and if you told me we're going to get blue sky and sunshine at the end of Q3, then you'd be very, very wrong, or I will be very, very wrong indeed, as Riley now comes down in towards La Source at turn 1. This is the final gasp attempt for Keki, Yaron and Riley, certainly to try and get toward the top end of Q3, as there are yellow flags, and that is a pure backup in terms of the track position coming through, and if they back each other too much up, somebody might not get across the line here. Riley coming through this first sector split, or he's on the run up towards the left bomb. Can't even get my words out. It's going to be Keki, I think, the last across the line. 29.7 in the first sector from Riley. Very quick to the first sector. Didn't need any slipstream. Keki's the last man across the line with 10 seconds to go. But it's Riley out on top currently in this first lap on this final run. His first lap here is going to be absolutely crucial and will set the tone for the rest of the session as the timer now ticks down.
Yeah, timer now ticks down. Tails has invalidated, so Tails' qualifying session is over and done with. He is out of it. That is no higher than 6th, unfortunately, for Tails here, as they're really pushing at the moment. With his first sector, Tyne's first sector is not fast at all, a 30.3. You can tell he has got a wet setup on. He is the best part of 7/10 slower than Riley in the first sector, and is now invalidated as well. So those on the wet setups really struggling in this qualifying session. We're going to keep an eye, though, of course, on the FER drivers. A 14.6 in the middle part of the lap now for Riley. This is right up there. Urona 29.7 first sector as well, very competitive. So both FER drivers pushing here to potentially go to the front of the timesheets. Covers only a 30.1 in the first sector. He's another one on a wet setup. So it's all about the FER drivers and what they can do, and if anybody can challenge them. Mentalism going strong behind as well, so we'll keep an eye on it. But here comes Riley up towards the line.
Here comes Riley through the bus stop chicane on the run toward the line. Is he going to go quicker than Covers? Yes, by only 0.4 of a second in the end. Covers there is not on the run. He's 1500ths up through that middle sector. Tails is backed off. 4.5 up though from Covers, responding big time here. The QRT man. Tajin there goes second. Onikatsuni now goes second. There are going to be more times improving as we go through, but I'm going to ride on board with Covers. Keki and Yaron are big ones to watch on board with as well. They're 9th and 10th position currently, but the QRT man is flying here. Covers, if he was on a full wet setup, might not be the case. Oh, and he makes a mistake in toward the bus stop chicane. He might have just threw it away. Coming now through the bus stop, very, very sketchy on the exit, and he's threw it all away. He goes third in the end, 42.9. Tails is backed off. Keki to line only 8th. 8th for Keki in the end. Very disappointing. Would have been 13th, of course, if we did go into the and stay into this lobby. Tails is back in the pit lane. He is done. He was the only one invalid actually on that run. But your own out on top, Riley in second, FER 1-2. If Covers didn't lock up too deep into the bus stop chicane, he could have had that.
Yeah, I think he definitely could have without that mistake, but unfortunately that is potentially a qualifying that he is going to rue, but third is still not a bad shot, considering that he was definitely on a wet setup. That is a mega job from Covers to get that car on the second row in that setup. You could tell in the first sector, Covers was nearly half a second slower than both of the FVR cars in the first sector, and he ends the lap only 0.3 down. So Covers was really on it, just not the right setup, unfortunately. FVR got the 1-2 in qualifying, but it was not the most orthodox qualifying session for them. That was a bizarre quality, to say the least.
It was a very bizarre qualifying indeed. It's Yaron out on top from Riley in second, Covers in third, Onikatsuni in fourth, Tajin there in fifth, Renz in sixth, Artem in seventh, Keki in eighth, Time there in ninth, and Tails rounding off the top 10. Only a second actually covering the top 10 in Q3, which is not bad at all. We have now gone to the race calendar and the driver standings looping screen, if you like, at this stage, because I'm desperately trying to get out of this session to try and set up the new one. It is absolutely flawed, I've got to say, from going from Q3 literally into the race. I can't leave the lobby at the minute, so we're going to have to wait, and it is full wet at the start of the race, is what I can potentially say there from what I have just seen on my screen, certainly. But Aiden, of course, coming into tonight in terms of the team standings, NLR holding the lead over FVR. FVR with a 1-2 in qualifying. That really sets them up well, and in fact, actually, they take the championship lead off NLR because NLR only had one driver into the Q3.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, of course, we got qualifying points as well. It's the old point system from the mid-2000s of Formula 1 for qualifying. So, yeah, full points for them in qualifying, and Keke only 8th, so only 1 point in quality for NLR. So yeah, championship lead now taken over by FVR. That is a great shot for them. Brilliant, good qualifying. Another team as well, very surprising. The second best team overall in that qualifying session was Mentalism. Brilliant stuff from them.
Oh
Fourth
my
and
god.
fifth in the end for One Kitsune. Brilliant qualifying session. Not quite, obviously, we've not really seen much from Mentalism so far this season. The points they've picked up have been when other people have made mistakes, especially at Silverstone. But yeah, that is a much more competitive qualifying session for the Mentalism cars in fourth and fifth. So yeah, quite a few teams there with a really strong qualifying performance.
Yeah, definitely. So literally having to set up the lobby once again. Give me literally about 2 or 3 minutes with this. I'm just loading in the settings now, and then get the track change. People have been sharing in Discord as well. Apparently, it was going to be thunderstorm in the race as well, and that is a setting within this game. Seen it in France, I think, for a commentary that I did. I think it was PSGL, if I'm not mistaken, a couple of seasons back, where it was thunderstorm conditions. We saw a flash of lightning coming through onto the Mistral Strait, and that could be very interesting indeed. And looking at that weather setup, I think I'm going to probably set it up exactly the same way as what it is on there. So there could be potentially a thunderstorm in the race, and I'm literally going to try and go off that, unless I'm told completely different by the admins, of course. I'm just literally getting into the lobby now, and hopefully this will be very easy indeed, and I can just go through on play together and just invite everyone in the whole one batch, and then everyone can just join, and then I can set up the grid, and they'll be all hunky dory. And that is exactly what I can do, which is absolutely fantastic. So all of you guys are getting invites once again. In fact, actually, we are missing a couple, which is not great. I think it's the guys that sent me a request to join is not going to be able to get in. However, pretty much everyone, including you, Mr. Aiden Carter, have been invited. I've got 15 in that session. So if you can invite any of the missing people, that'll speed my side up certainly, because I am now going to set the weather, which is my next thing.
Yeah, it's a fun little chore, isn't it, trying to set the weather? But yeah, thunderstorm conditions at the start when we did load into that lobby. You guys, of course, didn't see it, but we did briefly load into the lobby before it went, and it was properly raining at the start of that session, wasn't it? That was proper full wet conditions. So I think we're definitely going to see a very wet start. I think that's kind of maybe why we saw quite a mix of different setups in that session between dry and wet. Usually starts dry and if it starts wet and goes dry, majority of the time you see drivers go for a dry setup because you can't gain too much in the wet conditions with a wet setup, and then you're just a sitting duck in the straights, especially around a track like Spa. You can be a sitting duck in the dry conditions later on. So that's maybe why we saw such a mix, because the start of the race was pretty much the wettest it can get on this game. Proper thunderstorm conditions in the full wet. So being on a dry setup on full wets in those thundery conditions, you could lose a lot of time if you're not confident in the car. So quite a mix of setups. I think we may see a few people change, of course, with this time around. We may see a couple of drivers change their setups or go for something a little bit different. But if they've gone for what they've gone for at the start of qualifying, you would imagine most of the drivers are going to stick with what they know and what they've gone for at the start of qualifying. They're not going to make any adjustments. So we'll see what they do. Some drivers might change, of course, but it could be it's going to be very interesting. Going to be a very interesting session. The wet at the start is going to be a big game changer for this one, especially with how wet it is going to be. So yeah, these drivers definitely going to be looking forward to a very interesting session, I've got to say.
Yeah, definitely so. Definitely so. In terms of the invites, by the way, can you help potentially with some of the invites? I know ERT Pappy wanted an invite. If you can do that, that'll be fantastic if you're in the lobby. And also, I've spotted the flaw because there's no thunderstorm set up. So everyone is spared of the thunderstorm in the race. We're going to be setting it to very wet for that thunderstorm part. And in fact, I can only set 3 sodding things. Ah, brilliant. Right, hang on. I've got this. Let's go that, and let's go. What was it? Like cloud, I think? Or overcast? Overcast. Right, there we go. Oh, hang on. Give me a second. Here we go. And the weather, I believe, is set.
Lovely stuff. Well, not like a Formula One game, is it? Where you have like 6 different weather settings in a race, and then they only give you the option to go for 3. What a surprise! But yeah, it's definitely going to be an interesting one this session. I think it's hard to know. It's hard to know. I'm gonna ask. I'll ask you the question though, James. In this situation, if you're driving, what do you go for setup wise? Do you go for a setup that's tuned to the wet at the start of the race and try and gain the places, or do you go for something that's more tuned to the dry at the end and try and make up the places later on?
I honestly don't know. I think probably to try and make the places up a little bit later on, because knowing this track, knowing Belgium, it's going to be absolutely carnage, absolute carnage. I think out on track from the get go, down and towards the source. And if you make up ground, especially the further down the field that you are, the further that you are down the field, the more likely the likelihood is you're going to try and make up the positions. I think as we go along throughout the race, so it is going to be absolutely fascinating, I think, in terms of what we're going to see in terms of the race. If you're listening to the lobby, by the way, if you are listening to the stream, by the way, I haven't got an invite, please at me within the Discord chat so I can invite you in. That is my next job that I'm going to be doing right now. I believe we are missing 5 drivers, if I'm not mistaken, so I will literally get those invites out in a second. I know Nathan JB was one of them. He's on a different account, though, so give me a second, and I will hopefully invite them in. It's very difficult to try and type in people's names when the sun absolutely glaring on your TV screen, but I will get there. There's Nathan's invite. And we are waiting as well on Boomier. The settings have reset yet because I've taken off qualifying, if I'm not mistaken. I will check the weather, but the weather is set. What I can say to hang on, custom weather. It is set from very wet to wet, then to cloudy conditions toward the end of the race. So there we are.
Yeah, all set perfectly fine. It just say lobby updated whenever we change a certain setting. It could be literally anything from an assist to qualifying that it does that. But yeah, it is all ready to go. So we are just waiting on both of the Ferraris, so both VRTs, both IRT cars. I believe we're waiting on one of the Aston Martins, one of the GSP cars, as well as one of the Alpines. So that's who we are waiting on at the moment. 6 drivers still to go, and we of course can't make the grid until everybody's in the lobby, because once people join the lobby, they're not set. They then drop to the back, and you have to reorder everything. So yeah, hopefully we can get everybody in as soon as possible. If you don't have an invite, like you say, please do let us know and get in as quickly as possible so we can get this race underway. So it's going to be a long one. You guys want this race to start as quickly as possible. So fingers crossed we can get everybody in pretty soon.
Yeah, Tails has just got an invite as well, so there we are. Tails has got that invite. Yeah, it is very, very busy on my end. I'm having to literally host the lobby, do the stream at the same time. It's a very difficult job to do. I wouldn't like to put you in the comment section in my shoes right now, because it is a very difficult job to try and orchestrate and to try and do. If you can, as I said, try and get, if there's anybody in offensive that's actually racing in this lobby, get them in now as a priority, because we want to try and get this race going, I think, very soon. Indeed, Tails is in, Renz is in, which is good. Who are we missing? Let's have a look. We are missing GSP, is it Spicer? I think we're missing.
Hulkenberg. F1 Hulkenberg, yeah. F1 Hulkenberg we are missing, and then I believe beyond that we are missing.
And
yeah, we're missing Artem, and I believe if the other Red Bull is Bumpier, if I'm not mistaken. So that is who we're missing.
Artem is on my friends list. There we go. That's him invited in. And then who are the other 2?
We are missing F1 Hulkenberg and Bumpier are the other 2 still yet to join the lobby.
Bumpier. I think I might need to type. Oh no, they're both on my friends list. Even better. There we go. Both of them have got invites. That should be everyone now, hopefully in. And yeah, that is now, I think, everyone invited into the lobby, which means now I can actually set the grid, which will be brilliant. Hopefully everyone will be able to join. But yeah, keep us entertained, by the way, in the comment section while we wait, of course, for everything happening. Troy there in the chat as well. Hopefully by next game I'm completely no assist, which would be really good. F1 23, I know, is going to have the last handling model, David Greco, who's actually leaving the company after this actual game. That might be a little bit too much information that I might have shared there, but David Greco, he is leaving the company at the end of this game cycle, so the end of F1 22. His last handling model, however, will be in the F1 23 game. So if you're wondering about the differences in terms of the handling, what I can say is a little bit of exclusive information here. Is it's going to be slightly different to the one that we've actually got, and it actually mirrors the one pretty much that we had on F1 20. So if that's anything to go by, it could be a positive thing for everyone that might be on a wheel rather than on a pad, which is perfect for you guys who are sweating it out for F1 Esports, and then there's little old me who's still stuck on a controller.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see the future of the F1 game. Definitely, I think from the many rumors that we see across the board, I think across the your favorite Reddit, of course, that we see, a lot of the rumors are that F1 23 is remarkably similar to F1 22 by the sounds
Yeah.
of things. So as long as everything is fixed on that game and it's a far more stable game, that isn't too much of a problem. I don't think people despise the handling model that much on this game. I think it's more the problem of the fact that the game is pretty unstable at times. We do have very weird glitches at points, so that is why some people do struggle a little bit. But yeah, if it's the same handling model, that's not too much of a problem. The rumors have been, though, that as we get further along into the game cycle, they will hopefully at some point in the future change engine models, which would be great. They've been using the Ego model ever since 2010 back then, and that's of course back when they were racing on the PS3. So it's a pretty old system that hasn't been updated to the same as many others like the Unreal Engine. So we'll keep an eye on it, but that could be definitely something for the future, as our drivers are readying up without us telling to. So we've got to make sure that
Yeah.
they don't ready up yet.
Yeah, to put in a message if you can. I'm just literally setting the grid at this stage. I've got the top 10. I've got the other guys as well to be added in as well, which is good. Tajim there in 5th, and then we've got Renz in 6th. It's a good job that half of these guys have actually joined toward the top end of the field, which is making my life a lot easier. It makes your guys' life a lot easier there in the chat as well. Arsem's further down the field, however, so we have to put him there in 7th, and then it's Keki and God, I'll put Keki in 7th, Keki there in 8th. Time there in 9th, he was the last one to join. And then in 10th, we have got Tails BR, so the Ferrari man in 10th. And then, if I flick to Discord, I have got everything else up on Discord for 11th, 12th, 13th. Formation lap I need to check is off as well, so I will do that in a second. It is Lafleur in 11th. Literally, if you can fill in for me, Aiden, while I do this, that'll be fantastic.
I am just going back through all of our old results from Q2 and Q3 just to make sure I've got everything correct. But let me double check. But Flair should be 11th if I'm not mistaken.
Yep, I've got it here. Hulkenberg 16th. I'm literally like 4 left to do. Nathan 17th. And then we've got Nathan Clark in 18th. Stretcher 19th, Pappy in 20th. Right, there we go. Everyone is there. Confirm changes. The grid has been set, which I'm glad to report. I'm going to double check that the formation map is off. And it is. Formation map is definitely off. Qualifying is off as well. It is long session, which is 50% race. And that means, ladies and gentlemen, we are good to go.
Lovely stuff. We can finally get this race underway and straight into an incredibly wet race that I think a lot of drivers are dreading.
Exactly. But we can ready up. I'm just about to give it the go ahead. Thank you for your patience, by the way, in waiting for that. As I say, it's very hard to try and commentate and then have to try on a different focus on a different thing while keeping the stream up at the same time and while not showing my stream while I'm setting the weather forecast as well, which is not that great. But I'm just going to quickly double check the weather. I'm pretty certain that it is set to the weather that we want it to be. Weather and time of day, custom weather. Yes, it is. We're all good. We are all good to go. And yeah, we are now beginning to get going. And we are literally about to go into the 22 lap race, which is very good to see. We can take you now back live to the action out on track. But there we are. We are done and everything is ready. And if it's not all ready and we have to restart again, blame it on me. Simple.
Well, we won't blame it on anyone else, will we? But yeah, well, hats off to you, by the way, for doing that, for commentating and doing that at the same time. I don't think my brain could handle that, unfortunately. I think I'd get into a bit of a sensory overload and just shut down. So well done for that one. But yeah, straight in, and there we go. Right what it looked like when we left the lobby earlier on. And someone's accidentally already started the lobby. So someone has started this race with no setup on. So
no,
it's
just a random timer, I think.
Oh, potentially. Oh, yeah, it might actually be. Yeah, it potentially is, isn't it? It might be the random timer for the tyres, because of course you now have to go through that tyre selection process at the start of the race, even with no qualifying. So hopefully that is the case, and then everybody remembers their setups and remembers their tyres and everything like that, and we can get going straight away onto the race. Of course, no formation lap, so they will drive straight in. But good thing about that is that in these conditions, at least, the wet tyres are heated up to a temperature where they're actually not going to struggle for grip early on in the race. It's the only places they're going to struggle is where it's really wet. So I think La Source may be fairly tame, but by the time we get to Eau Rouge and Radion, that may be pretty difficult on lap 1.
Yeah, definitely. So we're waiting for plays, it says on my end. There was certainly no timer that came up on my end either, so it could be a shock to me in terms of a potential 30-second countdown that might just start indeed. But we are about to get going, I think, here in Belgium. The drivers are just beginning to load in their setups and whatever. Apparently I made a mistake. Keki should be P1. We only restarted to rig it in our favour. That is a disgraceful behaviour. Get him sacked. Get Jav sacked there in the comment section for that comment. I'm not believing that 1 second. I was given the correct order, and Keki did qualify in 8th position at the end of the day, even though he had that 5-second penalty. I could have easily rigged it to put him to 13th, but then again, I'm not like that.
Exactly, yeah. It never changes, does he, Jav? He's been like that for years, hasn't he? But yeah, yeah. Even just Cat Stars lucky that we actually got rid of the 5-place grid penalty, because it would have been a 13th place grid start for them, and both NLR cars could have potentially been outside the top 10. So that would have been a really really rough qualifying for them. But NLR with it all to make up in the race, haven't they? The FER have now taken the lead with that qualifying performance. So now it's up to NLR to try and see if they can fight back, and it's also up to FER to see whether they can hold on. If we're going off of what drivers did earlier on and they're going to choose the same setups, then potentially Covers here could be very interesting in these wet conditions, because we saw that he was incredibly fast in the wet in the qualifying session and managed to get it third even on the dry. But yeah, he could be very, very fast in these opening stages in the wet conditions.
Yeah, definitely. So, I'm a little bit worried because I'm getting the waiting for players up, and I'm not sure if drivers are preparing up their setups and whatever, and there's going to be a little bit of time given for the drivers to get their setups ready. But I'm concerned that I'm stuck in the lobby at this stage. Jav also mentioned that apparently you love him, which I'm not really surprised in, to be honest. I mean, Jav did bottle a Division 4 race win last night in Singapore in League of Europe. He was leading underneath the last safety car, and then he bottled, I think, finishing out the race. 30-second countdown is on. We're not stuck in the lobby, which I'm glad to say. Just drivers preparing up to getting ready, and we are now beginning to get going out on track here. Kieran, when you're going to race, you need to help the lads get a Q1 for once. Exactly, yeah. Kieran, of course, the ERT man from PSGL F2, who's had a double podium this season as well in PSGL F2. I'd like to see him within the lineup on Sunday. But then again, Sundays is God's day, and I'm not surprised if people are respecting that at all. But we are about to get going. 5 red lights are about to go out here for Belgium. Finally, we're about to get going. Round 3, and it is light down, away we go, and Riley does get a very good start. Jeroen is better off the start. There was a bit of a slide there from, I think, Vogel, and further down the field. Down in towards turn 1, though, you come at La Source, and Jeroen leads the way from Riley in second. Covers there in third, and Tyne and Kitsune are going side by side there as well. Tajin, I should say, and Kitsune going side by side. Everyone's through clean turns 1, 2, and up the hill now in towards Rouge and Radion safely. And so far, Keki going side by side with Tyne, coming through a Rouge and Radion. Tyne just backs that off slightly, and has a big snap of oversteer on the exit of the corner. Several flares, 4 wide almost, in a bit of a T-bone shape, running down the straight here. Only Kitsune side by side with Covers. Flares trying to go side by side now with Tails. On the inside line goes Tails toward the inside of turn number 5 at Lecom, trying to get the move around the outside, but he can't find a way through, and Seb the Flare is through, and he's into 9th. Great start from him. Tails as well, still trying to fight back at him though, on the run down towards Bruxelles at turn number 9. And he's doing a good job so far. Tails runs into the back of him there slightly. Everyone is having to fight for grip desperately. Very, very good start by everyone, though, despite the conditions. Jeroen leads the way, Riley in second, Oni Katsuni in third, and Hein Hyde is nearly hemmed into the wall there by Payne further down the field. Nathan Clark is running side by side nearly with Vogel up towards P1. Fantastic race start, though. Jeroen out on top, Riley in second, Oni Katsuni in third, and already the FER pairing breaking a second ahead of the MNT boys.
Yeah, breaking ahead already, aren't they? It was a great start from both FER drivers, really tame. Great start from everybody, nobody with really any major mistakes or any major drops in places, so great start from everybody. Oni Katsune got the move done down to the Brazil hairpin as we've got a yellow flag. As I say that, Hulkenberg has spun at the back of the field. No damage seemingly on the front of that Aston Martin. He can continue on as the two Nathans go side by side. Round the outside it goes Nathan JB or Nathan Clark. Lovely move there around the outside of Kerpel Frere. He gets up into 16th place. Oni Kitsune, great start as well, up to third for Team Mentalism, past Covers, who was kind of napping a little bit on that first lap. He was so focused on trying to get in the slipstream of Riley that he... some of them have missed the corner at the bus stop chicane. I think Riley just missed the bus stop chicane, and that's put Oni Kitsune right on the back of him.
He has indeed, and the Flair was trying to go to the inside line on his own teammate Keki there further down the field as well. He was on the back of Keki on the run towards turn 1 now at the source. I think the NLR boys have got to work out a strategy call as Tyne looks the inside line there on tails in towards turn 1. In the end, doesn't, and actually the Flair nearly has a flare of Overseer coming out of turn 1. Somebody that did that was Boomier in the background. He had a huge snap of Overseer on the exit of turn 1, but your own there leads the way. Riley, as you mentioned, absolutely obliterated there the chicane of the bus stop, pretty much like Jensen Button actually in 2010 before he got hit up the rear end by his own teammate Lewis Hamilton. Tyne on the back of tails though, looking to the inside line, running down the straight in toward Lake Holm chicane. Tyne to the inside line on tails. Oh my word, they've got very, very deep indeed. Both of them force off the track. Tails has to cut across the track, regains in position. Boomier gains a position ahead of Tyne. Oni Katsuni now around the outside, I think that is, from covers. Oni Katsuni getting bullied out of position there by the QRT man. Covers there through and he's into third. Tajin there in fourth. And I'm assuming Oni Katsuni has been caught up in contact there slightly with covers, or he made a mistake. One of the two things happened. Oni Katsuni now behind Tajin, and Tajin there in fourth, and Oni Katsuni there in fifth, doing a good job. But they're down further down the field. Tays there in 10th. And Tyne all of a sudden down in 13th as a result of both of them locking up in towards Lake Holm.
Yeah, they were both trying desperately to outbreak each other, and in the end, both of them ended up
missing the corner. Oh my word, Vogel!
Wow.
To the inside line of Heider at the Fania chicane gets the job done. Beautiful stuff. And Vogel through and he's into 14th.
Lovely move from Vogel up to 14th. Heider's poor qualifying is turning into a poor race at the moment. He's just falling further and further down the field, and yeah, for Oni Katsune, I didn't see what happened. It was either contact with Riley or he just lost the rear of the car at the exit of Malmedy. We see it a lot over that little crest on the exit of the corner. So that is why he's now down to 5th. Covers up into 3rd, but Covers now with an opportunity with the setup that he has got on potentially to try and chase after Riley. Urone is gone out front. He is 2.5 seconds clear of his teammate. Make that nearly 3 seconds clear as they come out of the bus stop chicane. He is absolutely flying as there's more battling further down the field as Tyne and Vogel going side by side. Tyne's off the road again as Vogel trying to go round the outside. Tyne gets a real snap of oversteer on the exit and Vogel is up another place. Tyne is in the walls at the moment as Tyne Heider now trying to go down the inside of Tyne in towards the La Source hairpin. He should get the move done. Everybody's missing the apex. Tyne Heider down the inside. Tyne has to back out of it. Tyne is back down to 15th. 3 second time penalty as well for Payne for extending the track limits at the source. Not going to go side by side here. Please don't go side by side. Backs out of it. Nathan JB back ahead of Nathan Clark again, but Nathan Clark's trying the switch back at the top of Radion. He has to back out of it. He doesn't have the room to do it. And Nathan is back through again on the other
stretch.
Nathan, so
he's coming from a absolutely mile back stretch. Look at a phenomenal run coming off of Rouge and Radio, and in the end can't get the job done. Brilliant racing throughout though. You mentioned with your own, he's absolutely exploded the way out in front. 2.9 seconds clear of Riley. Covers there in 3rd. Tajin there in 4th. Katsuni there in 5th. Early position gains, by the way. We'll get that graphic up on the left-hand side. Boomier has gained 4. The Flair has gained 2. Tajin has gained 1 along with Vogel, Nathan Clark, Stretch, and Pappy. They've all gained 1 positions. Most positions lost, however. Tyne had a huge snap of oversteer, I think, coming out the first couple of corners, and there he is down in 18th position. Sorry, not 18th position, 15th position, I should say. The time there further down the field. Nathan Clark picks up a second 3 second penalty of the night and actually loses position to Stretch on the runner Kuon, I think, through the Fania chicane to Stretch through and he's into 17th. Nathan Clark there in 18th. Nathan Clark has been a very consistent driver in TML in the past. He normally is quicker than some of these guys out on track, and I would not be surprised if he does make his way through, but he is getting caught up there as Artem on the back of Renz. This could be an interesting battle through Blanchemont up the run towards bus stop chicane, and Artem looking like he's excelling so far for the VRT team on the back of Renz. Looks toward the inside line of the bus stop. Don't think he's going to get the job done, but drivers out breaking themselves ahead. Actually gives him a run around the outside. The Irishman trying to get the job done on the exit of the bus stop. Now in towards the source. He'll be barely alongside, I think, in towards the source at turn number 1. He will have the inside line, though, and he absolutely excels that to the inside line of turn number 1. And Renz in the end, no contact made. Artem through. Nice job there by Artem. The Irishman has had a very good weekend so far. He is soon into 6th. Renz there in 7th. Keki there in 8th. And Keki has got absolutely no pace early on for the NLR team. And NLR currently 8th and 9th. As with FER, currently holding the championship lead. They're 1st and 2nd. And Riley coming under pressure as well from Covers and Tajin. There's more battling going on further down the field. But at the moment, your own leads Riley in 2nd, Covers in 3rd. Great move there by Artem, though.
Yeah, lovely move from Artem. He is through, but of course the problem with him having that wet setup on is that it's cost him big time in track position in qualifying, and it's difficult to overtake with that lack of straight line speed. As Flair gets a 3-second time penalty now, the second place of those two NLR cars. So not a great race so far. They had a great opening round. Silverstone was a horror show, and so far Spa has not been any better at the moment. They're really struggling in these conditions. One person that isn't though is Jeroen. He is now 4 seconds up the road from his teammate. He is absolutely flying, is Jeroen, in this race. Riley holding on to second at the moment ahead of Covers, and Tajin is in fourth. By the way, we've been notified in the chat, One Kitsune does have a little bit of front wing damage on that car. It's not anything that we can see visibly, so it is a light bit of damage. It's not costing him too much time, but it is of course going to put him on the back foot, and if he decides to change that front wing at some point, that could cost him. As Nathan Clark, it seems, has gone for a moment at P1. Yeah, Stretch as well. For the second lap in a row, Nathan Clark off at P1. Hulkenberg is back through on them as well. Stretch loses the car completely this time in the chicane, at the Fanish chicane. He is completely around, and he gets going again, I think without any damage. But yeah, rough stuff at the back of the field. They're not enjoying these conditions at all, especially the two Williams player, ERT, having a nightmare once again. Another yellow flag once again. I can't see who that is for. Is that Nathan? Yeah, Nathan JB's had a moment as well. So the two Nathans having a horror show of a race. They've been battling each other really well, but other than that, they seem to be just going backwards. It's been a shocker at the moment, and everybody from 16th down having a really rough race at the moment. And you've got to say, looking at the gaps, the leader, of course, Jeroen, is stretching away, and then there's a huge queue from Riley all the way down to Tails in 10th, and then behind Tails is Payne in 11th. He is dropping off the back of his training front.
Yeah, Tajin on the back of Covers as well. There's another yellow flag, and I think that's actually Nathan JB who's crashed into the pit lane, if I'm not mistaken. So that is him pretty much out of contention, and also Nathan Clark, who I think might have been the mistake out of the final couple of corners. So Nathan Clark had a spin coming out the bus stop chicane on the run down the straight. In fact, he is there down in 19th position, challenging Stretch for that bottom end, maybe for the wooden spoon toward the end of this race there as well. Tajin gets caught in the inside curb, Covers sliding his way through as well. The rain is beginning to ease up though, slightly out on track. It is beginning to turn towards the intermediate conditions. As we plan, as Tajin absolutely sends it on the back of Covers, locks up completely there in the house. Only Katsuni now invited back towards the inside line, tries to get the up and under, but in the end can't get the job done. I believe it might be slight right side end plate damage potentially for Oni Katsuni. There looks like, to me, there's a winglet missing. Certainly not a wing plate wing damage missing, as Stretch has left the session out of frustration, I'm assuming. Artem now trying to capitalise on Oni Katsuni and all this battling ahead. He's there in second, and Oni Katsuni there dives it now. Pretty much there too late on the back through the Vanya chicane. Artem is right thereabouts, the VRT man on the back of the Team Mentalism man, and he locks up once again. This should be Artem's move to the inside line, through Campos, through Stavolo, and gets the job done. He's through and he's into fifth. Beautiful stuff there by Artem. And Oni Katsuni, that damage is coming back to bite him. And as I say, I think it is right side end plate. However, he is coming back around the outside of Blanchard and nearly gets forced up the grass, John Lacey style, coming through there. Goodness me, we didn't want to see a crash like that back in 2001. But Tails has picked up a 3-second penalty, and once again, just locks up there, does Artem, and Artem stays in fifth. Oni Katsuni there in sixth, but Oni Katsuni, you can tell he's beginning to struggle in terms of his tyres, as I will flick it back on the tyres to see what everyone is on. A Stretch has managed to rejoin, and Oni Katsuni lunges it to the inside line of turn one on the source. Tries to get the job done. The Ferrari's there alongside. It should be the Ferrari's move, I think, on the exit of the corner, but Oni Katsuni is still there running down the hill, but Artem is doing into fifth still.
Yeah, still into fifth place, but we've already seen Oni Katsuni is very fast in a straight line. Can he get the run maybe down towards the source? No, he's going to cut the top of cut the top of Radion and get a penalty. But look at the straight line speed in that house. Without DRS, he's going to go to the outside line. Can he go all the way around the outside of Artem?
Easy.
Here at the chicane, yes, he can. Artem doesn't even want to go for it. He stays in behind. Oni Katsuni is back through, but this is kind of the last thing that Team Mentalism needed to be doing. By far their best qualifying of the season, and they're kind of throwing it away by making really, really late moves on people and running into the back of them. That is Agent Tatsun that's obviously running to the covers. Oni Katsuni has picked up his own damage somewhere as well, so great qualifying for them, but being overly aggressive in these wet conditions is costing them, and they're just going to fall further and further back if they continue to race like that. So Oni Katsuni now under big pressure. We are getting very close to intermediate conditions here, so I'm wondering whether Oni Katsuni is the first to gamble for a set of inters. It's all Artem!
Oh my god!
Oh, Katsune's round now. Oni Katsuni on the exit of the corner has spun the car completely. I was about to say, would he be the first to take the risk and come in for a set of intermediate tyres and change that front wing? I think there's no point in him going now. I think he might actually be beached as well on the edge of the circuit. He's got going once again. But I was going to say, would he be the first to take the risk and come in for inters and repair his front wing at the same time? Now he may as well do it because he is at the back of the field with no chance of getting back inside the top 10 otherwise.
Yeah, he may as well now. There's no risk but reward, I think, for what he could see throughout this race now, and he will be on that set of intermediate compounder tyres. Artem, by the way, I still don't know how he's still in 5th position after all of that. He's gone onto the inside curve through Pouon. How on earth he did rodeo style on the curve and then flick the car back right to recover the car is absolutely beyond me. Artem there third, he's in 5th, Ren's in 6th, Keki there in 7th, and Keki now all of a sudden is getting involved in this battle as well. But Jeroen, 5.4 seconds as Keki looks to the inside line on Ren's in towards turn number 1. That's an audacious move towards the inside line. It might just get pulled off though. Keki with his new pedals is going to try and pull this down the hill in towards the Rouge and Radion. Surely you don't go side by side, and Ren's backs off and Keki through and he's into 6th. A nice job there from Keki, the NLR man through and he's into 6th. Ren's there in 7th. Flair there and 8th is doing a good job. Tails is in the wall. Tails has a huge moment coming out of Radion and spins, I think, with right to left plate damage potentially. I think he might have got away with it. He has, I think, got away with it. The Ferrari there in 11th, doing a good job, but up until that point, he spins, and that is unfortunately from Tails down there in 11th position. Artem there in 5th, still Keki in 6th, and Ren's there in 7th. And I will be back with you if you can take over Aiden in just a second, because I can smell my dinner downstairs. I don't want to do them too early, because I'll be probably eating in the halfway through commentary.
Yeah, one other driver to look at as well, by the way, PGS Vogel having a great start as covers now. 3rd place with a 3-second time penalty. We saw this in Silverstone as well. Drivers picking up penalties very early on in the race, and it's happening again here in Spa. A track that's not traditionally too difficult on track limits, but yeah, covers another one to pick up a 3-second time penalty now. So that at the moment net puts Asian Tajin onto the podium place for Team Mentalism. So bit racing at the front. Jeroen continues to lead nearly 6 seconds up the road now from his teammate. He is cruising at the front of the field, although Jeroen has no ERS really to play with at the front. Riley has all of his ERS in his back pocket. He is not pushing. He is holding the rest of the field back. He doesn't need to push. He's got such a gap to the majority of the pack and to his teammate in front. So Riley doing a brilliant job in 2nd position then as Asian Chazine comes down towards the bus stop chicane. Can he get a move done? Nope, not quite close enough, unfortunately, down there into the bus stop chicane. Stays in 4th for the time being as Jeroen sets the fastest lap. Do we see anybody come in for the intermediate tyres? No one's taking the gamble as of yet. I'm wondering if a lot of these drivers on the full wets are going to stay out potentially, as we've got a yellow flag. That is Stretch that's had a spin coming through Curve Pool Frere. So Stretch having a spin through there. He has fallen further and further back in this race. No one coming in for the intermediate tyres, which maybe thinks to me a lot of these drivers are going to stick on the full wets until it goes dry potentially at the end of the race. It's a big bold move for them if they do decide to do that.
Tajin has just had a huge moment coming through Rally. I'm sorry to cut you off there, and I am back, but Tajin on board with him, had to stick on board with somebody, and Tajin has just had a huge moment of oversteer coming off the curb, coming through Radion. How on earth he's recovered that, I do not know. He has literally done what we had in the W Series race, and some of the drivers, I think it was Jamie Chadwick that went out there, even though it was in dry conditions. She went out there on the AstroTurf, basically had to try and recover the car, and obviously that big incident, of course, happened a little bit later on in that race. But Tajin there in 4th, doing a good job, and taking in a Jamie Chadwick, believe it or not, through there, coming out of Radion.
Yeah, big save there from Tajin, but holds on to it. I was just saying as well that I'm surprised nobody's taken a risk and gone for the intermediates yet. I'm wondering if some of these drivers are staying out hoping for dry conditions at the end and they're just going to keep on the full wets. But I wonder if someone a bit further down the field who's struggling, maybe someone like Tyne, who's had a rough start to the race. We know he's got good pace, but he's had a rough start. Why not pit for the inters? And if no one else pits for the inters, come in and just take a risk, take a gamble. Currently 14th, he's not really going to get much better than that on track. His only places he's really gaining at the moment are people on penalties in front, but he is dropping further and further away for the major parts of the field as Renz and Keke go side by side. Keke has been off the road. Keke has been off the road coming through Curve Pool Frere. He has dropped back behind Renz and behind his teammate Flair. So Keke's march forward has been stunted once again. He drops back a couple of places and back towards Payne right behind him as Jeroen now dipping into the 59s. We are getting there, and here's Riley. Riley is in. Riley is the first one in. Agent Chazine is in as well, so they are coming in for the intermediate tyres. No one else is coming in though. Hein Heider is into the pit lane from 13th. Other than that, everybody else is staying out. I'm surprised we're not seeing more people in for the intermediates. We saw that by the time the wet runners were running in like the 59s, the 58s in quali trim, let alone race trim, the intermediates all of a sudden came on and they were a good couple of seconds a lap faster as further down the field. I think Nathan Clark has had a moment on his intermediate compound tyres coming out of Curve Pool Frere.
Yeah, indeed, down in 20th position. Still going though on that set of inters, which is good to see. Tails has picked up another 3-second penalty further up the field. I think that's from the exit of Radion, if I'm not mistaken. He is caught up. Riley, by the way, is in 13th position coming out the pit lane. 2 seconds comfortably clear of him. Looking at as well, Stretch, who is with Oni Katsuni, he's back into the pit lane. So Oni Katsuni back in, front wing change on as well for the for the man down in 18th, of course, after that spin. Team Mentalism man in 18th. Nathan now going past him, I think, down at the start finish rate. In fact, he's in the pit lane as well. Nathan Clark will continue on and try and steal both positions, but Oni Katsuni out the pit lane is there on 3 seconds worth of penalties. Penalties run down, by the way. Covers on 3. 8.5 seconds, by the way. Euron out in front. 3 for Flair, 3 for Payne, 6 seconds for Tails, and then 3 for Pappy, 3 for Heinheider, 3 for Oni Katsuni. It was another near moment coming out of Radion, and then Nathan Clark is on 6 seconds worth of penalties at this stage, with Vogel all over the back of Payne at this early stage. And Payne, well, if he is going to feel any pain, he could feel pain potentially from the PGS man behind.
All these puns, I'm starting to lose my mind a little bit. But yeah, one person to keep an eye out here for is Vogel. Vogel's up 6 places since the start, no penalties, so he's within range of 2 drivers in front of him penalty-wise. He's having a really good race so far, is PGS Vogel in the Alfa Romeo, so look out for him to potentially be a threat later on as into the pits comes Euron. And by the looks of it, as Flair gets another penalty now in the McLaren, and by the looks of it, I'm not surprised we're starting to see people in, because they are flying a bit further down the field. We're just looking at Riley. Riley is gaining very quickly on the drivers in front. Everybody's in, apart from Keke. Keke had to stay out, of course. He was behind his teammate, as was Tails, so they've both had to stay out for another lap. We've got a yellow flag in the middle sector. That is Nathan Clark again, who's gone for a spin, this time at Pilwan, and Stretch has gone for a spin as well at Curve Pool Frere. Let's see the gap between Riley and Euron as they come out of the pit lane. The gap was about 7-ish seconds by the time he came into the pit lane. It's down to about 5.5 by the time Euron is fully up to speed. So that's a good undercut. Tajin's undercut Covers as well, and is back into P3.
What has Covers done? Covers gone into full set of wets. Flair has gone into full set of wets as well. What on earth has happened here from the QRT perspective and from the NLR perspective? My TV, by the way, has just turned itself off, so you're not going to see any action very soon indeed. I'm going to have to quickly run and try and get this. You can try and do radio commentary for a second.
Yeah, can't do radio commentary for a second. It's still showing on the stream, so I think you should be fine. But yeah, Covers and Flair both on the full wets, clearly not paying attention to their strategies, and they've selected the wrong tyre, and that is a disaster in these conditions. As Nathan Clark has retired, that's in the pit lane. He is out. He is the first retiree from this race. But yeah, Covers, that is a disaster, especially for Covers. He was in the fight with Tajin for that final spot on the podium, but that is pretty much gone, and he's dropped the car coming out of Vic's corner. He keeps it out of the wall, but what was looking like such a strong race for Covers is falling apart. Artem now up into a net 4th position. That is a lifeline as well for Tajin. Tajin was looking under a bit of pressure from Covers. Covers is now out of the picture. The only one really within range of Tajin for this final spot on the podium now is Artem, so he's got to look out for Artem further behind. But yeah, Covers a disaster in the pit lane there, and the same, of course, for Flair. Flair not looking too bad in these conditions, as Tails has now spun in the, oh my word, in the VRT car. Those on the full wets are really struggling now. They're obviously overheating in these conditions. There's not enough standing water to cool them down. Keke is really slow at the moment at the front of the field. We've obviously had Tails spin. Covers has been off the road. Flair's managed to keep it on the road, but he is just going to lose tons of time on this tyre unless he pits again. I'd be surprised if, I mean, do you stay out? Do you pit for another set of intermediate tyres, or do you just stay out and take the pain now and hope it dries up? If you're the case of Covers, you pit again. If you're the case of Flair, you stay out.
Yeah, I think if you're in Flair's shoes, you've got to try and stay out, weather the storm, and then maybe do the Ono Opmia sort of strat, and then try and go throughout the field. If everyone stays on the set of inters, he's the first one to come in for a set of dries. That could potentially work out. There are pit stops, by the way, being made as well. Keke is the one out of the pit lane, and that is Payne ahead of him. So Payne is now ahead of Keke. This has not helped, I think, with the fact that Flair, of course, has got that penalty further up the field. 6 seconds worth of penalties, in fact, that he's got. Vogel now on the back of Keke running down the straight. This could be quite close between them both, but Euron leading the way, 4.7 seconds. Clearly got pace over his own teammate there in second. Tajin there in third. Currently doing a fantastic job with Artem in 4th, Renz in 5th, Flair there in 6th, Payne in 7th, Keke in 8th, Vogel in 9th, Heinheider there in 10th, Brumier in 11th, Time there in 12th, Hulkenberg 13th, and Covers in 14th. Oh my word, it's Payne. Nearly looks up into the back of Flair there and lets Keke now to the inside line, coming through in towards Jackie Hick's corner, and actually goes around the outside of him. Fantastic stuff by Keke. In the end, Payne threw offline there. Vogel was alongside him in all of that as well. So So Payne there in 8th, Vogel there in 9th, and you can perhaps say down in 14th that the covers are definitely coming off this race.
Yeah, they absolutely are. That is such a shame because QRT really needed covers at the front. You've got to say, it says a yellow flag. That is Tails that has spun again in the Ferrari. What a disaster as Tyne gets past Bunkya coming out of Pillon. So Tyne now starting to work his way back through the field after his rough start to the race as well. QRT really needed covers at the front of this field because covers has been struggling. Well, not covers, sorry. Heinheider has been struggling all this race long, and covers has looked like podium material all the way through. But that mistake has cost him. As Keke's off. Keke's off. Keke's in the wall. Eleanor's race goes from bad to worse. That is an absolute disaster. They just needed Keke to finish to keep going and finish the race strongly because of Flair's strategy call and mistake on the penalties. And here comes Payne around the outside on the better tyres. Surely he's going to get the move done, and Flair decides not to fight it too hard. Payne is through. He's into 6th place. Vogel will be next. Flair's just going to continue to fall on these wet compound tyres. They're not as terrible as they have been in previous games, but they're still not fast as Vogel tries to dummy him in towards turn 1. Flair defends it. Vogel's going to try and go the long way round the outside and try and get the better run in towards Eau Rouge and Radion. He's thinking about it. I don't think it's quite close enough, but if he can just stick close enough through Eau Rouge and Radion, he should get the run maybe up towards their common. You can see Flair having to back off through the middle of Radion to make sure he's not understeering off the road. Vogel right there. It's only a matter of time though before Vogel gets this move done, and as it's looking right now, it's unlikely at the moment that we're going to see either NLR car inside the top 10 here.
Yeah, but what I think could save them potentially is the rain. And the rain, I think, is now beginning to stop. And I think it might have. It's still very, very light, but the rain is now beginning to stop out on track as we set it to. Hopefully it's not going to be a full wet end to this race, because that'll just look very, very silly on me. Even though I only got told I only had 3 options up, so I had to try and go for the overcast conditions towards the end of the race. Flair there though in 7th, off wide, coming through Puon and Vogel. This is opportunity to try and pounce, and this should be Vogel's move around the outside. Flair will try and fight this though. NLR needs to try and save points. The Vogel, in the end, round the outside, gets the job done. He's still needed to 7th. Very, very nice stuff indeed from the PGS man. Flair there in 8th, Heinheider there in 9th, doing a fantastic job. But Jeroen there leading the way, Riley in 2nd. It's now 6 seconds the gap between the FER boys. Tajin there in 3rd, Artem there in 4th. We can hear FaceTime going off in the background. That's my girlfriend trying to call me through commentaries. Heinheider has gone for a spin through Kirk Paul Thresh. That is unfortunate for Heinheider. He has spun. Hulkenberg now in 11th as a result. Keki now up to 12th, and Heinheider. The cover's definitely coming off the QRT strategy at this stage, again with a very bad pun there. Behind Heinheider in 13th, covers there in 14th, Mercedes there 13th and 14th, and then remain currently as they are as Tyne is all over the back of Flair at the final corner.
Yeah, fastest up for Payne as well. Good lap time there from the Aston Martin as he's now into 6th place. He's got Vogel behind. Vogel's still on that really good sprace at the moment, up 7 places from 14th on the grid. Now running in 7th place, so great stuff from him as Riley picks up a 3-second time penalty. That is potentially crucial if Tajin can keep within range. He could nick 2nd place here off of Riley, so Tajin's just got to stick within that 3-second window to try and get 2nd place. Remember, Mentalism fighting at the moment for their first podium of this season so far with Tajin, but Artem is closing in on them. So Artem is faster than both Riley and Tajin in front. He is looking good in 4th place as all the penalties are coming in at once. I think as everybody's going off at the top of Radion, Covers picks up a penalty at the same time as I believe Tails picked up another penalty as well. So a lot of penalties going on. By the way, other than Payne fastest lap on that previous lap, is now Tyne going for the move around the outside of Flair. Can he get the move done through the hairpin around the outside? He should have the better traction on the exit the corner, and he does. Lovely move from Tyne, and Tyne is recovering very nicely in this race. Having been down at 15th at one point, he's back up to 8th. He's continuing to march through the field, and Flair is just continuing to fall further and further down. He's got a couple of spots left, and then he's outside the top 10. And you've got to remember that Hulkenberg spun on the opening lap of the race down to last place. He was 5 seconds off the pack. He has now got a very, very real shot of being inside the top 10 in a couple of laps' time.
He has indeed. The Aston Martin doing a fantastic job. The Red Bull there in 10th, also doing very well indeed. And Boumye, and he is still in contention for potential top 10 finish, along with Flair ahead of him. The rain though beginning to stop out on track, and I can certainly see from Boumye's perspective the rain is still falling, but it is very, very light now. And this track, by the way, with it being overcast conditions towards the end of the race, and I actually didn't think of this, the overcast conditions might not actually dry up the track as quick as what the drivers might be hoping for. So there could still be a little bit of intermittent spray and intermittent puddles elsewhere out on track. The rain, though, I think has now completely stopped almost out on track. But with that, and with the overcast conditions clearly being there until the end of the race, This could mean potentially we still get drivers on intermediates running towards the end of the race if and only if the rain doesn't stop now. And if the rain stops now, then there's more than enough time for it to turn dry before the end of the race, and maybe even get a late safety car to just spice things up a little bit as well. Bouvier is so much quicker than Flair coming through a Rouge and Radio, now running down the Kemmel straight on the run down in towards the Com. This should be quite easy for Bouvier, the Dutchman, passing Dutch corner to the left-hand side, looks to the outside line now on Flair, and Flair in the end locks up a little bit too deep. The blue sky just trying to break through the clouds, we can now come through Lake Com. Bouvier picks up a 3-second penalty, trying to go for the up and under, coming out of Malmedy now, running down the hill and towards Bruxelles. He could draw alongside here, looks the inside line. Flair has to try and leave it late on the brakes, but in the end, Bouvier easily stuffed. Easy stuff there from the IRT man. He is through and he's into 9th. Easy as you like. There is a yellow flag in sector 2, and that is for, and I'm just trying to see them up behind Hyder. Yeah, Hyder losing the position behind covers, lost it coming out of, I think, Malmedy. Now he's down in 15th position, and QRT, from what could have been a really, really good race between them both. Only Katsuni and Tails, by the way, side by side, further down the field as well. They're coming down through Jackie X corner, and Tails trying to hammer it around the outside line. Oni Katsuni still, of course, has got no, has still got that front wing damage potentially on that car, but now Tails looks the inside line of Puon. Oni Katsuni very much laggy to the outside line, and how on earth you can try and fight a laggy car like this? Fair play to Tails, gets the job done though. Soon he's into 16th, and Oni Katsuni comes back at him, but Tails soon he's into 16th, and he runs fast like Sonic.
Yeah, lovely stuff there from Tails, and another terrible pun from yourself. But yeah, lovely move from Tails. His teammate Artem currently in P4, looking very, very fast. All of a sudden,
oh my God,
caught.
Keki trying to go around the outside of Hulkenberg and Flair. Oh my word! I don't know how Keki was trying to do that. To be honest, it was a bit foolish from the NLR man to try and get that done. I think they were trying to work it out team tactics, so Flair can defend to the inside line and Hulkenberg was in the middle of them both. Keki was had to be forced on the outside line, and in the end, both Hulkenberg and Keki got caught on each other. Keki got flung off on the outside curb, and now he's down 11th, Flair in 12th. Not the best tactic from NLR, if that's what they were trying, as Hyde advertising the pits.
Yeah, not really the smartest move there. I think if they were trying to do the tactics and trying to hold Hulkenberg up and back him up into into Keke, I don't really know where they expected Hulkenberg to go. I mean, he kind of had to go into the middle of the road, and he was kind of sandwiched between the two McLarens there. So that's, yeah, not great tactics if that was tactics. It may have just been the fact that they got caught up behind Flair, who was so slow on the full wet. So that could be the reason why Stretcher's rejoined the lobby, but he's currently down in 18th and plumb last, having a horror show of a race, unfortunately, for him. But yeah, interesting to note, as just before that little incident happened, I was noting earlier on, Riley all of a sudden, his pace has dropped off again, and Tajin and Artem have catching him very quickly all of a sudden. So Riley seems to go through these phases where he's got decent pace, and then he seems to hit a wall of pace and drops for a good few laps and has no pace at all. And then he seems to re-find his mojo again. So I don't know if that's just a lack of confidence or something for Riley, but currently running in second place, there seems to be a couple of laps here and there where he just seems to lose all confidence and all speed, and he gets caught again. And at the moment, that is not helping him in his fight for this final spot on the podium, because right now, Artem is currently 0.2 of a second away from being within penalty range of Riley. So we could see a pretty much a repeat of what we saw in Silverstone here, where FER finished 1-2, but they end up with a 1-4 because their second driver has a penalty.
Yeah, potentially so. I mean, Riley will look into getting that penalty, of course, removed. 3 seconds, I think, was for corner cutting, and I think certainly rode on board with that, and it was to the inside line, I think, of the Fania chicane where we picked that up. So he's there in second, Tajin there in third, Artem there in fourth, doing a good job as it stands. Looking through the looking through as well, Covers is on the back of Flair, trying to recover some positions. Flair is having to try and stay it, I think, for the potential dry compound and tire. But as I say, it's now lap 16 out of 22. We've gone an extra 3 laps without the rain stopping out on track. I think this is now setting potentially for the race, for the entirety of this race. With what, 6 laps to go after this? Jerome leads, Riley second, Tajin in third, Artem, Renz, Payne, Vogel, Tyne, Bouvier, and Hulkenberg top 10, and Keki, Flair, Covers, Pappy, and then Tails top 15. Only Kutsuni, who's had an absolute horrid race from a team mental perspective, there in 16th. Nathan in 17th as Keki looks to try and get the job done on Hulkenberg around the outside line. Hulkenberg, just like in real life, trying to get the elbows out, and the Aston Martin. Keki to the outside line, the Finn nearly put on towards the grass on the gravel there, coming out of Malmedy, but in the end, Hulkenberg is still in 10th. Keki there in 11th. Truscott all the way around the outside now, coming through Bruxelles. Was not going to get the job done, as Oni Katsuni has crashed through a Rouge and Radeon. So Oni Katsuni, is he going to bring out a safety car? I've seen yellow flags there before, and it's normally not the case for there to be a safety car or a VSC. Judging by there's literally no one between himself now and the leader of your own, I think that's not going to be a safety car or a VSC, and I think we're going to get away with that.
Yeah, we've gotten away with it by the looks of things. I think for the likes of FER, I think they're quite happy that that is the case, that we seem to have gotten away with no safety car there. But yeah, interesting stuff. There's a time penalty for Keke as well in that all of that melee as well in P11. So his shot of trying to get inside the top 10 is going away now, because his fight with Hulkenberg is really not a fight at all. Hulkenberg doesn't have a penalty at the moment. So yeah, Keke at the moment still stuck in 11th place. No NLR car inside the top 10 for the second week in a row. NLR are having an absolute disaster in their championship when they dominated the first round. They led, of course, coming into tonight, lost the championship lead in qualifying, and are just going to fall further and further away as it stands. Yeah, Covers is in the wall coming out of Blanchimont. I don't know if it was contact with Flair or whether that was just on his own, but that's going to be another pit stop, and what a disaster second half of the race it's been for Covers. So strong in quali, so strong at the start of the race, and it's fallen apart, and he's retired out of frustration in the pit lane. He is out. That is our 4th retiree from this race, our 3rd one in the pit lane. So absolute disaster for QRT today. Their championship at the moment hit a bit of a brick wall, it seems, here at Spa. Not a great one whatsoever. One person who is having a great end to the race, though, is Artem. He is now within a second of Tajin. Of course, no DRS now towards the end of the race, and you would assume that it's not going to drive enough to get DRS, as there's more fighting going on. Keke and Hulkenberg.
I thought he was going to go around the outside of Lecombe, might try and switch it back coming out of Malmedy. Hulkenberg, to be fair, is really defending. The rain, by the way, I think has stopped now, though the rain is still falling actually out on track. It's got a little bit heavier, in fact, the rain. So it is going to be setting, I think, until the end of this race now. And that means Keke has to try and find a move on Hulkenberg from somewhere. Tyne also trying to find a move on Vogel, by the way, and Vogel has dropped off completely in terms of his pace. And here comes Tyne to the inside line of the final chicane and absolutely obliterates him to the inside line. Gets the job done. Beautiful stuff by Tyne. And in the end catches Vogel completely napping. He's gone too hard on his tyres, it seems. He looks like he's beginning to turn that into a set of hard compound tyre, let alone a set of inters. So that is Tyne through, and he's into 7th. Vogel there in 8th. Vogel's gone too hard on those tyres, and Tyne now through. Make it look pretty easy indeed. And if Tyne can gain on the back of Payne, which is going to be quite interesting for me in my commentary, Payne and Tyne in 6th and 7th, if Tyne can gain 2 seconds basically, he's within Payne of 3 seconds, and Payne has got that 3-second penalty, of course, and that will put Tyne up to P6.
Yeah, of course it will. And now fast ups are coming in, and if you go on board, it has stopped raining. The rain has now stopped with 5 laps to go. It could dry up by the end. It's whether it's worth pitting for a set of slicks at the end of the race, so we will wait and see. And of course for Tyne, this is important, because the Tyne has been able to do what neither of the NLR cars have been able to do in this race, and that is recover successfully. Obviously Keke and Flair have both had their incidents and their strategy mistakes. They have not recovered. They've been stuck outside the top 10 now for a lot of this race, and not looked like they're going to get any higher than at least 10th in this one. Whereas Tyne was 15th at one point, has recovered to 7th, potentially 6th. So, and that of course is big for Juventus. They are 3rd in the championship right now, behind NLR. They outscored NLR, of course, in qualifying, and they could outscore them in the race as well. So it's now a case of FVR potentially driving off into the distance, and Juventus catching NLR rather than NLR holding on to the battle for the lead. So that is going to be very interesting here if Tyne can close in, and he is closing in on Payne pretty quickly. So that could be a 5th, 6th here for Juventus, which would help them massively in their battle for 2nd in the championship right now. As out front, Jeroen continues to lead by nearly 7 seconds. Riley still in 2nd position as there's more fighting going on. Artem as well, right on the back of Tajin.
Yeah, it was Tajin actually needed losing control of his car through the middle of the Fanish chicane. Artem was all over the rear end there of the back of the team Mentalism man, and Tajin is doing a fantastic job. Artem, though, is going to try and make him now suffer in terms of his pace. Tajin has been going there pretty much in no man's land behind Riley, but now he's got something to worry about, because here comes Artem towards the inside line. He's not going to risk it from that far back, but he's gone way too deep as Tajin. This is going to open the door, surely, for Artem to try and get the traction on the outside, coming out of the bus stop chicane. The rain, as Aiden mentioned, has stopped out on track as well until lap 19 out of 22. Your own lead, Riley 2nd, Tajin in 3rd, Artem in 4th, and look at the fastest laps that are now coming in. That indicates that it's definitely turning dry. Whether or not it turns dry before the end of the race remains to be seen. There's a lot more spray coming down the hill than there is at other parts of the track, so remember that going forward. Flair is certainly going to be looking to come into the pit lane, I think, before the end of the race, at least to pick up a fastest lap attempt. But here comes Artem on the back of the Tajin once again, running down the Kemmel straight. He is closing in very quickly indeed. Going to have to be forced to the outside line. The Haas doesn't want to make contact with him, and he tries to go all the way around the outside, and in fact, Artem tries to go and loop it around the outside, but in fact, he's actually too late on the brace, cascades into the side of him, and currently Tajin holding there in third, Artem there in fourth, and Artem, there are ways and means, my friend, to try and get the move done, and that was probably not one of them.
Yeah, it was fair defense there from Tajin. Artem just turning in too early with the hassle on the inside and just clashing with the side of him. And we've seen it as well. Artem's been slower in a straight line, of course. He's got more car set up for the middle part of the lap. That's not going to help him down that Kemmel straight that he's slow. But look at how much grip he's got in Poo on him compared to Tajin. He can take a couple of tenths out of him in just the apex of the corner. And now they are both out of penalty range, of course, now to Riley because of this fight. So Artem, if he wants to get this move done and secure a second place, he needs to get it done now. He needs to get past Tajin and pull away. And Tajin here currently losing that battle to stay on the podium as it stands. He's going to drop potentially here down to fourth and off the podium, but it's still been a great race so far from Tajin.
Oh,
and for that, he's lost it. Oh, and Artem right into the back of him, nowhere to go. Artem with nowhere to go. That is so unlucky for Artem. Tajin losing it right in front of him. Oh, that is gut-wrenching for Artem. He was having such a good race, but for the second race in a row, bad luck strikes him.
Bad luck does strike him indeed, and it's such a difficult corner. I mean, from Tajin, he did really well to try and recover that, and in the end, the car of Artem has literally forced him into not getting front wing damage, and Tajin has got away with that, but has he got front wing damage? Because Ren's now all of a sudden 1.7 seconds in behind, Payne 1.7 seconds as well, time now up to 6, Artem there in 7th, and Artem, you have to feel sorry for him. You have to feel sorry for the VRT team. Tails had a very good first half of the race as well until he spun. Artem there in 7th doesn't deserve to be there. He deserves to be on the podium, I think, out of this race. He's done phenomenally well, but do you know what? He's got right to end plate damage, but he's still going to try and make a race of this at the very, very least. He has to try and stay out there. He's got Vogelen behind, 2.7 seconds behind. That's going to be his battle. 2 laps to go. The track is drying, but it's not drying, I think, on the rate of what we are. However, I'm looking forward to the road coming to the middle sector. There is certainly a dry line coming out of Jackie X through in towards Puon. Dry line definitely beginning to form in that middle sector as Jeroen actually runs wide there. Coming through Puon, leading the race from Riley in 2nd, Tajin there in 3rd, and Tajin, well, he'll be hoping that Artem does not make him into a stew after that.
Yeah, he definitely will. That is such a shame for Artem, but with that front wing damage, I think Vogel's lack of pace at the moment means that Artem should be fine, as Tajin now gets a penalty to boot as well, so that is 3rd completely gone now, unfortunately, for Tajin. That puts Ren's now onto the podium, which helps Juventus even more in their battle for 2nd, so they can continue to get further up this field. And yet, it is such a shame for Artem. It is such bad luck, but you can't really place blame on Tajin. It was just wrong place, wrong time. Tajin had his own moment coming out of Kerpel Fair. We've seen so many people make mistakes out of Kerpel Fair tonight. I think we've seen pretty much everybody in this field make a mistake there. Tajin had a big snap of oversteer, and Artem was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. You can't really put much blame on Tajin for that one. It is such a shame that Artem has been costed here a podium position, but that is just the name of the game sometimes. It is just bad luck, and luckily Artem is still going and he will still get some points in this race, but it's of course not going to be much of a reprise. Ren should get the podium here quite easily as Payne absolutely flying. It's a shame Payne's got so many penalties because Payne's pace in this race at the moment is phenomenal. He is absolutely flying onto the back of Renz. He's only a second behind Renz, who's now only a second behind Tajin. So without any penalties, Payne has thrown himself here into a spot on the podium potentially by the end of this race. That is a massive performance from him in this one so far. It's been a really, really strong drive from Payne despite the penalties. Yeah,
it has, and he's normally quite strong in the wet conditions. That is why I think he's so far up the field, and obviously with people's misfortunes ahead of him, that has brought Tajin, Renz, 3rd and 4th ahead of him. Payne there in 5th is doing a fantastic job. Tyne is gaining on him though, 3.7 seconds the gap. Payne has got 6 seconds worth of penalties. It's not going to really matter. It's Artem to Payne is the main gap to watch out for, I think, in terms of that battle. But onto the final 2 laps, as the rain has now stopped, the spray has pretty much now gone out on track almost through the middle sector, certainly, and this now means drivers will not come in, apart from Flair, who I did say will come in for fastest lap attempt. That's exactly what he's going to do. On that side of soft compound tyres, right out the back of the field, Stretch there in 16th has rejoined as many times as what you would do, I think, in the 5-lap open lobby, but Flair there in 15th, Stretch in 16th, Stretch there on the back of Flair. And Flair, in the end, is going to be stretched to the max in terms of this, as Tajin, I think, has had a mistake somewhere coming through the middle sector, and Renz, all of a sudden, how's he within 2 tenths per second?
Yeah, it's just a case, isn't it? I think as we're getting to the end of this stint, it just seems like Tajin's pace has fallen off. He's another one, maybe like Vogel, who's used up his inters at the start to try and get a gap, and it's just fallen away from him. So yeah, a loss of pace here. I mean, the penalty for him means it's not really going to make any difference anyway. He's still not going to finish on the podium. So Renz doesn't have to fight this. We're on the final lap. He doesn't have to fight this one too hard unless there's an open opportunity to take it and to get third on the road. But yeah, brilliant stuff from Renz in this race. A bit of an understated race, but he's capitalised on everybody else's mistakes in here. He could get a podium here for Juventus and put them right in the fight at the front of the field. FER, though, what a performance from them tonight. Midway through quali, it didn't look great for FER, did it? They didn't look like they had that stronger pace. They came alive in Q3, and in the race, they have been dominant. But now, a second penalty for Riley. Now there is impetus for Renz to try and get past Tajin here, because Renz is only 2/10 away from stealing away a 1-2 finish from FER here.
He is. The gap is currently, his DRS is now enabled. Okay. We've got no DRS zones until the end of the race, so I'm not getting excited for anything there. Tajin in third, Renz in fourth, Payne there in fifth. If there was a DRS zone, I would be very, very impressed, but there's not. Around this track, they could have a third one through Brunchmont, but then again, I don't think anybody would be having a DRS zone, I think, midway through a corner. But yeah, the FER boys have done fantastically well. Jeroen has really excelled out on track, and I mean, he's gone purple in the middle sector as well, so he's going for fastest lap attempt. Tajin off-road there, coming through the right-hander now of Campos, and Renz is all over the back of him. 6.5 seconds now between Riley and Renz. I think it's an uphill task for Renz coming through Stavolo. And now on the run towards Blanchimont, he has got to do this. On the run towards the bus stop chicane, ideally, Jeroen and Riley will come home first and second, I think, as Jeroen on the run to the line will take the race win here in Belgium and takes the fastest lap of the race for now. Riley, though, to the line will finish in second, and I think Renz, all of that effort is going to be for nothing at the end of the day. He's now 6.8, 6.9. It's going to not happen. Riley there in second. Renz in the end will pick up a very good third for Juventus Racing. Tajin in fourth, time there in fifth. Juventus, I think the underdogs of team gain in terms of this race, certainly. Payne there in sixth. Artem in seventh. What could have it been for the man for VRT? Down there in seventh. Vogel, to be fair, he was right down the back of the field a little bit earlier on as well, and he finished eighth. Hulkenberg in ninth. Brumier in 10th. We wait for the rest of the guys coming along. Flair, by the way, 2.2 seconds up in the middle sector. Clearly going for fastest lap attempt here. This is what I'm going to ride and pull with, but he's absolutely hammering into the gap of Nathan. This is going to be fastest lap of the race, no matter how you look at it. And actually, Nathan is off the road. Oh my word! Nathan off the road. Flair now up in position. Has Nathan got a puncture? No, he just purely made a mistake coming through curve pull Flair. And talk about getting a move done on the final lap of the race. That's one way to try and come across on your rival. But Flair there in 14th. Nathan there through the final corners to finish in 15th. Flair is easily going to get the fastest lap of the race by good 5.5 seconds, I think, in the end. Nathan there 14th ahead of Flair and Stretch, who had connection issues through the second half of that race. The PGS man is going to come home to finish in 16th. Good result from Vogel's end. Stretch will be wanting, I think, a rerun potentially out of that race there in Belgium from his perspective. But that rounds us off very neatly for this afternoon's race here in Belgium. Really hope you enjoyed that one. Vogel gets Driver of the Day awarded by the in-game fans. But Aiden, FER won 4 last week. FER won 2 this week.
Yeah, it wasn't particularly straightforward for them, but brilliant performance. And then Jeroen looked a class above the rest of the field, didn't he? Jeroen was so fast today. Riley struggled a little bit, but he kept himself out of harm's way. He paid it as well. He did a really good job. Picked up that second place finish. And as well, Juventus, like you mentioned, a bit of an underdog performance from them. A great job from Renz to pick up third place in the end, but Tyne, a really good recovery from being so far down the field early on to pick up P5 in that one. That is a big saviour of a race for Juventus in their battle at the front of the championship. And again, second week in a row, and NLR have struggled once again. It's started off so well, and within 2 rounds, it's almost fallen apart for NLR. Absolute disaster for them. Big shout out as well to Team Mentalism, by far their best result of the season so far. GSP as well, without that penalty, Payne could have been within the fight for the podium, but a great race from Payne and a great recovery as well from Hulkenberg from the very back of the field at the end of lap 1, 5 seconds off the pack to finishing in 9th. Really, really good recovery and some good points on the board for GSP. Yeah, definitely so indeed. Jeroen, though, in the end, takes the race win. FER 1-2. They really excelled in qualifying. They excelled once again in the race. Jeroen takes the race win from Riley in second. Renz there in third with Tajin there in fourth. Tyne in fifth. Payne in sixth. Artem in seventh. Vogel in 8th, Hulkenberg in 9th, Brumier top 10, then Keki in 11th, Tails in 12th, Pappy 13th, then Nathan in 14th, Flair with the fastest lap of the race by good 3 seconds in the end.
over, I think it was Tyne in the end, who was the second fastest lap. Stretch there in 16th, did also finish. Covers came up for him early on, Oni Katsuni, and we missed the other two, but the other two, of course, were also DNS out of the race as well. And that rounds us off very neatly for this afternoon's race here in Belgium. We really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, like, comment, subscribe, tick that notification bell, of course, if you're brand new to the channel. We go next week to Hungary, where I, first of all, am very hungry, so that's why I'm probably going to go and not have any interviews after this race. But Hungary next week, Aiden, a track that I've recently covered actually for Legacy Division, for WOR. Great racing around there in terms of the teams, very close-knit racing there. Are we going to see the same potentially in Hungary? Because it is a track that does promote a lot of overtaking.
It does, yeah. Despite the fact that it's a fairly short track and there's not particularly usually any places to overtake, it is a very good track for racing. Tire strategy there is interesting. Qualifying though for Hungary is going to be very interesting. That could be quite crucial. So yeah, going to be an interesting one. It's a bit different as well to what we've had so far. A little bit different in terms of length and in terms of kind of what setup you need for the circuit. So yeah, going to be exciting in Budapest, and hopefully we can see maybe someone else come out on top, because at the moment right now it is starting to look a little bit like the FVR show, isn't it?
It is indeed. And Jav has said we can do interviews if we want to, and I'm literally putting my foods ready. So I'm literally going to have to go and rush off and have my food, which is a nice bowl of chips, which is not too bad whatsoever. But if you did like that stream, like, comment, subscribe, tick the notification bell, of course, if you're brand new to the channel. We will hope to see you, of course, in Hungary over Easter weekend. It's going to be Easter next Sunday. So if you are full up of cream eggs, and full up on chocolate and sweets and just full of sugar, then you can come and explore all that sugar away to watch us here in the NLR Esports League Season 3, of course, in Hungary next week. And then after that, we go to Circuit of the Americas, Monza, Singapore after a break week, and then Brazil on Eurovision weekend, which is going to be very good indeed. But that rounds up very neatly indeed. Thank you to Mr. Aiden Carter for joining me in the comment box as always. Much appreciated. And we hope to see you, of course, next week once again for Hungary. Until then, I've been James Head. He's been Aiden Carter. Thank you so much for watching. And until next time, goodbye.